we'll get ready to rock and roll. So take 30 seconds, a minute if you need to do whatever you need to set up your screen, set up your notes for the day, get ready to rock and roll so you can be 100% engaged. If you need to send out any other messages or communications, please take a quick second to do that. And then also put up the agenda. There's not too many handouts for the day. I'm going to send you guys the folder, but really just got the there's mostly just NLG documents and then the push documents. So I'll forward that out here in just a bit. In the meantime, what you want is just to download, if you haven't done so already, the agenda for the day. And we will get ready to rock and roll here too. So let me go ahead and cue this up and we'll get things kicked off. Take 30 seconds, finish getting whatever you need to get out. And we are live. It is our third TLA session with the Florida Coast Division. Third, by the way, ever. So third TLA session officially for this division. And I'm really, really excited to dive in for the day. This is for me when things start to get exciting. You know, the first two TLA sessions are really about laying a ground work and foundation. And now we get to build upon that foundation. So as we get things kicked off for the day, just friendly reminder, let's make sure we're 100% engaged. You know, Mason Linker spoke to our NLG group yesterday about some of the things that he did when he was training and preparing to run his first and second nationally ranked branch office. And one of the things that Mason shared too, he said, like Mason, even in his first year, he never really went above and beyond. He wasn't involved in a staff outside the office. He was just involved in the bare minimum basics for TLA. But what he was intentional about is when he showed up, he's 100% engaged, you know, and that's my challenge to you guys today is that, cool, what does 100% engagement look like? So it means like, yes, they're going to be text messages. You might have some other people in TLA messaging you throughout the day. You might have some other stuff to do for school or other stuff on your mind. But for the next 4 hours from 10 to 2, can you hold this time almost sacred and really be engaged in what we're doing so you can get the most out of it? Because this is, again, this is number one, going to set you up for future opportunities. And number two, this is the most important investment that you'll ever make, which is in yourself and developing yourself. So let's be 100% engaged. And what does 100% engagement look like? Looks like people seeking best practices. So you all have heard this one every single time if you've ever been doing SLDM. But, you know, I always challenge people. It's, are you looking for just the easiest way to do things or the best way to do things? You know, did you turn in the assignment last night at like right at 10 o'clock or 9:59 or at 10 or after 10 o'clock? Did you just kind of rush through the assignment, rush through the book to get it out? Or did you really look to seek to understand and get the most out of it? Are you seeking the best practices and the best way to do things? For my NLG, some of you all have already ran offices before. So, you know, some of this information, it's like, hey, you've been there, you've done that, you've ran these programs, you could maybe even give these talks. But, you know, are you seeking best practices and really learning and seeking out, hey, what can I pull out from this? And what is this person talking about that I'm not currently doing or that I didn't do in my office last year? Being hungry for growth and then seeking to get personal clarity. And when you have personal clarity, it's easier to make better decisions. It's easier to say yes to the things you want to say yes to and no to the things you want to say no to. So I had this quote, literally, I think in every TLA prep I've done so far: change is hard in the beginning, messy in the middle, and gorgeous at the end. And, you know, what's really, really exciting is that there is a lot of change and transformation that's happening. And by the way, a lot of times when change and transformation happens, it usually change and transformation is painful. Usually there has to be some sort of downward turn to go back in the upward direction. Again, I talked about, I think I said this in the last TLA prep, that, you know, the caterpillar, before it turns into a butterfly, it doesn't even know it's going to be a butterfly. It's not like, all right, time to be a butterfly. It's like, oh, I'm dying. Like, I'm dead. I'm literally going to bury myself now. And then it emerges, you know, out of that as a beautiful creature. But in that moment, they're like, my life's over. It's all done. I'm putting myself to sleep. And, I think a lot of times, again, that change can be messy, but it's gorgeous in the end. So I'm going to kind of kick things off here. There's a couple brand new members that are on our TLA class today. And so I just want to give a couple reminders too. And it's ironic that we have the CTC push, and that stands for Capture the Cup, but it could stand for the Cutco Through College push, if you will, too. And that's been a hashtag that we've been using all year round. And our Cutco Through College is really the premier opportunity that we have at Vector. And that's just, you know, for people that decide, hey, you know, at least while I'm in school, I'm going to use this as the vehicle to make the money that I want to make, to, get the experience that I want to get, to gain the networking skills and relationships with the people that I want to have. And a lot of you all just finished your first summer, or, really your first couple months in the fall selling and earning a spot into TLA. And also, I just want to give you guys props, by the way, too. Look, I really want to give people props to the people that are here, because you're here. You're here in the third TLA. Guess what? There are some people that were talking back at SE2 in August and said they wanted to be here, talked about it all summer long, and they're not here right now. And whether that's because they didn't perform or didn't get in, or maybe they made decisions or choices that did not keep them in TLA, but you're here. There's also a lot of other people that started and got accepted into TLA, right? And, there's a lot of you all on this call that have been conquering D2 like true champions, and there's a couple that aren't. And you're here, and I think that's a positive thing. And some of you all are barely here. Like, you limped your way into this meeting, and it was like your manager had to pull you on and get you here, but you're here nonetheless. And some of you all are radiating and shining, and it's really, really exciting to see what's coming for you guys. So a lot of y'all, after you go for your first TLA, it opens up the opportunity to become a branch manager, which is the premier opportunity that we have, in my opinion, at Vector Marketing. They're really, but there's nothing else that I think you can do as a 17 to 24-year-old to impact the first 5 to 10 years at a post-college graduation outside of running a branch office with Cutco. And I truly believe that is the case, regardless of what major that you have. On Thursday, I was a guest on someone else's podcast interview. I think a lot of you guys know who Andrew Biggs is. And he just launched a podcast actually with Mike and Bromwitz. I was helping him out with his Better Than Rich podcast series. And one of the things that he was asking me, not just in, I wasn't really talking about it in a sense of Cutco, but one of the things that he was talking about, we just got in the conversation of the nature of skills and knowledge, and how knowledge is what you can learn, but skills is what you develop. And skills you develop through experience. And he was talking about, hey, if I'm under the age of 30 years old, what are the most two important skills that I need to have? And if you guys haven't heard this before from me, it is always, in my opinion, sales and influence. The ability to sell and the ability to influence others. Those are the two skills that I don't care what you're doing in the future. If you have those skills, you'll probably be successful at what you're doing. Point blank, right? Now there's always probably some other skills that you should have with what you're doing, but those two skills are fundamental. And I also am a strong believer that if you don't have those skills, no matter what you do, you will have trouble having any sort of success in it. Period. No matter what the industry is, no matter what your major is, no matter what direction or what your position or title is, you're going to thrive or you're going to struggle based on your ability to sell and your ability to influence and lead others. And so I think, by the way, when I say the branch manager opportunity is a great opportunity, yes, we have our people make a lot of money, but I'm really talking about the skills that our managers develop. Someone could have an awful office, underperform, not profit at a super high level, not stand out. And honestly, most things could just go to crap. And that would still, I think, be one of the best experiences of that person's summer and out that person's life, because they're going to take that information with them and all those learning mistakes that they did over and over again. And there's plenty of people on this call that literally went from running a branch office. I'll highlight our current pilot sales manager, Rob Rodriguez. Rob, what'd you sell your first summer as a branch?
I think she ran to the bathroom right now.
Okay, cool. All right, Rob, I don't want to misquote the numbers, but I believe
I can quote that for him. He sold about like 25,000 his first summer.
Yeah, and I think 15 of that was him.
Yeah, it was.
So 15 of that was zone sales. So he sold like 10 grand his first summer as a branch manager. And I remember asking him, someone else was like, well, what if I have a bad office, or what if I, underperform? And I was like, well, why don't you talk to someone that didn't have a great office last summer, and ask them if they would do it again. And every time the answer is yes. And Rob, his second summer, he went through TLA, went in for round 2. And as next summer, he came just shy of a $200,000 branch office, and now has earned himself a pilot sales manager role and is on the way to becoming a district manager. Second time, you really learn how to grow a business. And then for our third timers, there's not always a ton, but the third time that we got Mason Linker going out for the third time, you really learn how to scale it. you're really learning how to run a district operation, even though it's only, just for the summertime period. And our goal is that by the time that you're graduating with skills, experience, network, capital, and that makes you a 5-star recruit so that you can actually go out, you have options, and you can choose what you're most excited about. So as we kick things off today, I want to get a quick around the horn. And actually, you guys already shared this with everybody, but I want to have I'll call on 2 or 3 people to share. What do you appreciate on this beautiful Saturday morning? What do you appreciate? Who wants to chime in? Ooh, yeah, Rebecca, you got it.
Pretty simple, just the opportunity to be alive, I guess.
Happy to be alive. Hell yeah. There's a Brad Lee, who's the guy that I had on my podcast, and I'm going to misquote exactly what he said too. But, I'm not going to go into the whole thing. Anyways, I think that's a good thing to appreciate sometimes, just being alive. There's a lot of people that you get to wake up again, and I think a lot of times it's easy to take for granted, just the fact that we are alive and healthy, and, have freedom for ourselves and, have an opportunity in front of ourselves. And a lot of that stuff's, great for us. And I'm really excited. And also not everybody has that. So, all right, let's move on here a little bit. Who else appreciate it? Yeah, Bryce.
Okay.
I'm not saying this just because they're on here, but Cassidy Sanborn. Cassidy has really helped me out the past probably month. Just helping me get out of D2 and get into a positive mindset. Just circular influence type thing. Whenever I call her, whenever I need her, she's always there, always helps me out. So I appreciate Cassidy.
Oh, I appreciate Cassidy too. Thanks, Bryce, for chiming in. And yeah, I loved hearing that. Cassidy the goat. I love hearing that positive circle of influence here too, and using that to vent up. Right. All right, let's get one more, and we'll kick things off.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, or one person I appreciate this morning is Trevor Borden. Haven't seen you in a while, man, and great to know that you're still doing good. And then the rest of Miami crew as well too. I think that they've been working super, super hard, and I'm super excited for what's to come with this staff and with this team.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, I appreciate this division and where we're headed. And as you all know, you can probably finish this sentence for me. We're doing now. What am I going to say? We can finish it.
What others won't.
So
Do in the future what others can't.
That's right. We are doing today on Saturday, October 24th. Most of your friends probably went out on a bender last night and aren't even awake yet. And most people are going to be waking up at 11 a.m. and heading right to football season. And, you probably could have done that too, or something along those lines. But you're here and, you're doing today what others won't. So tomorrow or so later, you can do what others can't. Yesterday in NLG, something that came up, and I remember Nick chiming in about it too, is just that, hey, in life, you always have options, and sacrifices are always made. You're always making a sacrifice. It's by the way, whenever you say yes to something, you're sacrificing something else. When you say no to something, you're sacrificing something else. Every time you make a decision, it's a sacrifice of something, so there are always sacrifices being made. And, and there's always hard stuff, right? The thing that I was sharing yesterday was all right, cool. Marriage is hard. Divorce is hard. Choose your hard. It's being fit is hard. Being fat and unhealthy is hard. Choose your hard. It's being broke is pretty hard. Making a lot of money is pretty hard. Choose your hard, right? Everything in life is going to be hard one way or another. It's called the pain of discipline or the pain of regret, right? And that's kind of the decision that you have to make. And I want to applaud you guys for being here because you are y'all making that decision. And I really want to challenge everybody too of have a perspective shift of really where could you be 1 year from today? There's a lot of people on this call that literally 1 year ago today, Cassidy Sanborn, future district manager here, she was just getting started. Didn't even really know how to sew Cutco barely. Is just getting things rolling here. And 1 year later, she's been an assistant manager in one of the #1 offices in the entire company, and is on her way to becoming a district manager. Literally, I don't know if Cassie, I had a conversation with her at this point last year, that would really have ever even crossed her mind. What's the power of 1 year? You know, the power of 1 year, I love seeing some of our vector train moments. There's a couple people on here that are on the 5-star recruit path. And one of the things that I'll tell you that you guys always have my backing is that if you actually do Cutco through college and you're here with us, you know, up until when you graduate, one of the things that we want to ensure, and I really like, you know, put my heart and soul behind this is that like, we want to make sure a 5-star recruit, you know, so part of that process is like, literally, I was talking to someone on the podcast about this. If other companies heard that we literally take some of our best people and we go out and help connect them with other companies and job offers and place them other places and help them interview around and help them get the interviews and do stuff like that, people would not believe that is actually the case. But that's what we're about. And that's what we like to do is create 5-star recruits. So you have, you know, 2 baller options at Cutco or more. And you've also got some other options for yourself that you've created for yourself. Last prep, I talked about the 2190 rule. And we talked about how there's only 90 days left until the end of the year. And I also want to give you guys another little reminder here. There's 25 weeks until summer. 25 weeks until summer. Okay. So summer feels far away and it's also closer than we think. And it comes right back around. So I want to kind of just give you guys that as the little reminder. And again, what we're looking to dive into and get the most out of today is just personal, professional, and financial growth. And we're going to have a little bit of all 3 of those wrapped into our messages here for today too. So I shared last TLA Prep, the future of the Coast Division. And it's really exciting right now what we're cooking, what's brewing. I don't think we have most of our district managers on our TLA Prep right this second, but just so you guys know, we have a district manager team right now of 3 people. You know, we have a pilot sales manager, and then we have 3 other district offices. So we have 4 district offices right now, and we're still continuing to compete nationally with other divisions that have, you know, 2 to 3 times the size of us. And also another fun fact is if any of you guys are future or aspiring district managers, one of the most decadent events, and we do a lot of different events, you know, there's like, we're going to Australia and New Zealand next year. By the way, talk to your parents, ask them like if they know any company that's taking their people. By the way, not just some people, this is like 450 people deep. It is like every manager and like their like, you know, spouses or fiancés or wives or, you know, girlfriends and boyfriends, whatever it is. It's like 450 people deep riding over to Australia for a week and then taking another week and flying all 450 people over to New Zealand for the week. But aside from that, the most decadent event that our company does is called President's Banquet, and it happens in January each year. And one of the things, it's typically, you know, there's only probably 20 to 30 people that actually make it or hit the President's Banquet qualifications. But it's a decadent event in Las Vegas. We stay at the Encore and the Wynn, and it is that might be their most expensive event. They have a company dinner with 30 people that they drop like 200 grand on, 300 grand on. It's just like Dom Perignon bottles on deck, caviar, like stuff that like, I remember going there for the first time. Like, I don't even know what this stuff is. When I was still in college at the time. So anyways, one of the most decadent events that we have, the Florida Coast right now, we have 4 managers and they're all on pace to hit it. And, you know, some regions don't have 4 managers at President's Banquet. And, you know, pound for pound, I think really we have one of the strongest district manager teams in the country right now. And one of them, by the way, is still in school and finishing up for last year, senior year at NYU. And I want to say this to you because it's really exciting to see this. But this is a small, tiny, mighty little group. You know, what's going to be happy is when that tiny little group, or what's going to be exciting is that tiny group of 4 offices turns into 25 offices. Right. And what the future of the division really is. And when I look at this call, I really get a chance to see, like, I love running our TLA preps because I'm working with the future of the division and the future of the coast. And it's really exciting. We've had a lot of new territories and opportunities kind of open up as we've been doing some exploration here. And it's going to be competitive, by the way. I hope you guys realize too, that there's there's a lot of people on this call. There's more people that want to get into TLA. And, you know, not everybody is going to have the opportunity to be a branch manager, but for the people that are funded and trained, you know, people that have the financial backing and they have been trained. And by the way, if you're going through TLA, if you're being 100% engaged, if you're taking assignments seriously, like by the time that the time comes, you will be trained and ready to rock and roll. And they're going to have an opportunity for next summer, which also exciting is the opportunity that we're going to be able to export people next year as a division. we're going to be able to fill up the whole Florida Coast division, but there's going to be some other cool opportunities that lie outside of our division on some neighboring lies or across the Eastern region. And we're really going to have a chance to spread some Florida Coast heat influence all across the region here too. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to skip down to here. Actually, and one other thing too that I'll just say, before I move on to the agenda here for today. We really do, if you do become a 5-star recruit and you get a chance where you're graduating for college, or maybe you decide school's not for you, the 2 premier opportunities that we have are, as number one, as a Cutco sales professional, which I'll just say too, even if you're going through TLA, and I still recommend, most of our best CSPs have ran a branch office before. But a really cool opportunity, a unique opportunity to explore. Some of your times you guys might see my mom on reports. That's because my mom is actually a CSP with us. She does our realtor program. So there's a lot of different programs. Some of you guys are starting to piece together your first couple business orders. Isa Farinas yesterday just did a 10 grand order that she got pieced together here and building some push momentum. And those can be really, really fun to do. Imagine when you have like 100 clients like that and you're always doing like 10 grand orders, and you make 50% of whatever you sell, right? And you're selling, 200 grand, 300 grand or so for the year as a CSP. For those of you guys like that don't really like managing working people, you have a little more independent autonomy. Our CSP opportunity is really cool. And our district manager opportunity is alive and well and thriving more so than ever. I mentioned it on Wednesday, but I had a one-on-one with somebody. And sometimes if you've ever seen the DM pay packet, it can kind of be like reading like Chinese. Like it's just, there's just a lot of numbers and you're like, all right, so how do I actually, that's some of you all when you get your commission statements. You're like, you don't even know how to read them. You just like see the number that's in your bank account and you're like, how did this get to this? And it's like, okay, by the way, if you ever think your commission statements are complicated, wait till you're a manager. They just get way, way more complicated and bigger and longer with every step of the way that you go. But our district managers alive, opportunities alive and well. I sat down with one of our TLA members and we were mapping out what their district manager opportunity could be like. And we mapped out some sales projections and things like that too. And, like our average district manager right now is making 6 figures, within their first like full year on the job before they've experienced growth. And normally it's kind of normal to have a year or 2 or 3, where you're kind of growing and still learning, in the actual role too. We have our best district managers this year, guys, are going to clear over, I don't know, 200K plus. A lot of these people you guys already know. And, not to mention like the trips and the travel, but really, I think the premier opportunity as a district manager is opportunity to impact and serve others. For those of you guys that have a heart for impacting and making a difference, especially working with people, young people at a time where it matters the most. I loved being and having the district manager opportunity that we have. So that's a little tidbit for those of you guys that are maybe new and hopping on here. I wanted to kind of dive in and talk a little bit about the agenda here for today and what you guys can expect. So we're kicking things off with the opening comments. We're going to have a talk from Jonathan Castell on how to start a business. We're going to have a talk from Eddie Escribas in the SMRA program. Adrian Arredondo is going to lead us on our PR program. So, and I'll kind of walk you guys through some more details here. We're going to have our second Money Honey session. Actually, it says Money Honey 2. I believe it's Money Honey number 3. Oh, no, actually, this is number 2. PDI coaching. I will be giving us a full overview of really how to coach and do this thing called PDI. And then we're going to have a final talk wrapped up with Mike Abramowitz on self-mastery before we kick things off for the day. Yesterday, we had an epic NLG session. By the way, if you didn't get the chance to go to yesterday and you wanted to, I highly, highly recommend. I think NLG yesterday, we had an outstanding session. And there's a lot of goods there for you too. We had a lot of first years that hopped on for it. And we got some positive feedback from them too, just being able to get a chance to see and taste a little bit of what NLG is experiencing here right now. Keep making statements with the matrix scores. I went over this on Wednesday, TLA Prep, so I'm going to skip over a little bit, okay? And as this time, I also want to remind you guys just of some startup kind of guidelines here. So, it's October 1st. At this point, everyone should have $1,000 in your startup account. Is the deadline by November 14th. So anyone that's not there, make sure you're paying attention to that. And then everyone else, if you're trying to be a branch manager, you want to be 2 levels ahead, which means by November 14th, Fall Classic, you want to be at least at $2,000 in startup to be on pace and in contention. Keep activating that $100 rule. I think I've saved a couple of you all some big expenditures that I think we can both agree would have not been the best idea. And some of you all have gotten some approval that you kind of needed to buy some stuff without feeling bad about it too. So continue to be executing that. And everyone knows leading up to this, the biggest, baddest push of the entire fall, the SC2 of the fall is coming up, our CTC push. So I'm going to do a quick review, and everyone at this point in time, by the way, except maybe a couple of you all, this should not be a review. All of you all hopefully already did a PC. Now the PCs are not due till tomorrow. So if you didn't do one yet, you still have a day. But if you reach out to your manager and they don't have time to schedule you, that's going to be your fault, not their fault. Because you guys know what the assignment has been for a couple of weeks here too. And my challenge to you all is, as you go into this push, is think differently, work smarter. You know, the definition of doing, insanity is doing the same thing over again and expecting different results. So, you just need to think differently going into this push. And maybe it's taking different actions, but a lot of y'all just need to change your perspective or what your kind of game plan is for it. Last time, some of you all made, push goals that involved way too many demos that you just quite frankly didn't have time to do. So maybe this one, it's, hey, executing a smaller amount of demos and making sure that you actually execute them. And don't just go, I was supposed to get 2 today. I just, I'll just get 1, it's fine. But it's like, oh, no, 2 today, I'm doing 2 today. And maybe you lower back what your expectations are of yourself of how much you're going to do, right? But raise the expectations in terms of commitment of what you're going to do. Maybe it's thinking differently. It's, hey, how can I piece together some business gift orders? And again, last Wednesday, I told you, hey, if you haven't written down like your hit list of top 20 people that that you could reach out to during the push to start kind of talking about some business gift orders, you're a little bit behind. Maybe it's thinking differently about, how you can do more appointments around classes. Maybe it's thinking differently about, hey, I'm up late at night every single night, but I can't do appointments till 11 p.m. So I'm going to get some customers on the West Coast and start doing late night appointments. Whatever it is, can you think about this push a little bit differently and we get ready to rock and roll in terms of execution. So coming up this Wednesday, we're going to have our division meeting, which is going to be from 5 to 6:45 p.m. to kick off our phone jam. And we're going to have a phone jam led by our next level group on the 27th of the month. And we'll dive right into until our push actually begins on the 29th of October. and we'll dive in. And then obviously the push goes to October 14th. And it's exciting to see the gunner chat. So the reason we made a gunner chat, by the way, for those of you guys that are wondering why there are 2 chats now, okay, is primarily because number one, the push chat, like the chat's going to get a little bit more crazy once the push starts. And I want you guys to still be able to get and receive communications from me. We're not like what happened or missing things or get drowned out by a bunch of sales updates. The second reason is there's a lot of brand new reps that will be joining this alliance and also pushing in that group chat that are not part of TLA. Number one, I didn't want to add them to this TLA chat because I wanted to, keep it separate. Number two, I didn't want them to miss out on some of the goods from our TLA class too, and from having a divisional gunner chat. So that is the place to update any and all hot sales updates during the push. And again, you guys are the TLA group, so I expect you all to lead. I already know we're going to have a strong performance as a division, based off of how our offices are currently operating and performing with our brand new reps and recruits. But this group is the group that's most important to me. This is the group that I want to see step up. This is the group I'm counting on to perform. And for a lot of you all, this is really an opportunity to increase your career sales. Yesterday, I spoke to even our next level group, and I told them, I said, hey, if you're under like 30 grand in sales, I don't really think you know how to sell yet. It's just being honest. I don't like if you're under 30K in sales, and that's fine, by the way, if you are, but I don't really genuinely think like you're still learning the basics of the job. You're still learning the basics of selling Cutco, let alone how to sell in general. You just, and the reality is, guys, is that you just haven't been through enough scenarios. You haven't done enough demos, to put yourself through up until that. If you're only at 30K in sales, you just haven't been through enough scenarios to really develop that. And so my challenge to you all is use this as a push to drive it. And there's a lot of cool contests getting up for grabs. So this Wednesday, if you didn't know already, make sure you show up with some demos booked up, because if you have 7 demos booked up, you're going to get an entry into an iPhone, 3 Apple Watches, or 8 Apple Mini HomePods. 10 demos is 2 chances, 12 demos is 3 chances. And here's the kicker for our TLA class, okay? If you show up to the Wednesday phone jam with 5 demos already booked, regardless of what you get to by the end of the night, I'll give you an extra entry into the raffle. So you can potentially get up to 4 entries into this raffle. And if you show up with 5 to the phone jam, you're going to get an extra entry into that raffle here as well. Here's my thoughts for the push, by the way. I'll just say this, and I think a lot of you guys already know this, okay? This needs to be a Florida Coast Heat push. You know, that I really think, and when I say Florida Coast Heat, I'm not talking about our divisional sales. I'm talking about how many of our representatives from our division are recognized by our region manager, by our president and CEO, and by all the executives that will be at the Fall Classic event on Saturday. You know, I want it to be a Florida Coast Heat show with all of our TLA class leading the way and representing at that actual event. And so, by the way, you can win some of these, okay? And does anyone know what this knife is called, by the way?
Vegetable
It's
knife.
but now it's going to be called the Florida Coast Trophy because all of these are going to be engraved with people from the Florida Coast Heat at the actual Fall Classic. We're going to stop calling them the vegetable knives. It'll just be called the Florida Coast knives. And because every single person from our Florida Coast division is going to be, not every single person, but the majority of these can go to some Florida Coast winners here. And the top 20 people, by the way, in personal sales to the push, probably it's going to take around like, I would say $7,000 is probably put you in the top 20 in order to be able to win and take home a trophy too. And then you guys know this. And here's what I'll just tell you. I was talking to Jonathan Castell about some of the travel yesterday. Look, the key to hitting the January trip that we're going to go on is by getting the credit. So, and this is what I'll just tell you. I don't care who you are in TLA. Every single person in TLA needs to get here. That's like my expectation. Now, a lot of you all are going for 5K, 10K pushes, 7K pushes. That's going to be great and impressive to see. But every single person, if you're in TLA, like I told NLG this yesterday, when I was at 80K in career sales, my 4th time going through at TLA, when I was in high school, my 1st time going through TLA, no matter what I had going on for the Olean push, every single time I sold $2,500. One of it was like literally the last day of the push, but I found a way always to make sure I was doing at least that. Don't put in any zeros. Make sure you at least get the trip credit. It's $2,500 and you get 2K in trip credit towards the actual January trip. And by the way, for those of you guys that don't know what that means, that just means if I had to sell 10K for the push, I get 2K credit. So I only have to sell 8K for the push now. If you add on that with some hint, hint, wink, wink, maybe some PR credit in there, it can make the push pretty damn easy to actually hit this trip. And this is like the easiest way to set it up is take some of the load off now by leading the way for the capture the cut push, which is a lot more important and imperative, I think, in the moment. And I want to give you guys a couple reminders here before we turn things over to Jonathan to dive into our topics today. You know, last prep, we talked about point A to point B. And this was some of y'all's major takeaways is what success people think success looks like and what success actually looks like. And we also been talking about situational leadership, and it's been really cool and exciting. Again, I want to applaud you. Like, if you're here, you're here. And a lot of you all, I'll give a kind of applaud. And I'm not gonna. I know who some of you are. I'm not gonna say everyone's names on the actual call too. But some of you guys have kind of crushed your D2 phase, and like it's a miracle that you are here. A month and a half ago, you were struggling quite a bit, but alas, you're here and you've overcame that D2. Some of you all you're just starting to now get into it. And D2 for you is gonna be between maybe now and Fall Classic. I want to give just some reminders too that if you're going through D2, the 3 steps are just kind of like, I want to shout out Bryce earlier for just chiming in, man. And saying like, hey, like when I was going through, like I wasn't, feeling too hot, and boom, I reached out to my circles of influence. Appreciate Cassidy, and that's one of the things is making sure that you're being surrounded by a positive circle of influence, making sure that you're doing some planning, and then revisiting your why, maybe taking a little bit of journaling time here too. And there is a purpose. I'm going to recognize some letters of intent here in a little bit. There's value when you make a decision, when you make a commitment. There's value in that. There's value in being aware of where your actual thoughts are. I'll play this kind of this video as a quick, I'll play this slide. Does anyone know what this is like? What this is? Does anyone know what this is explaining or what this is showing? I want to take a stab at it. So this right here is kind of like, this is your brain. This is like your mind. Okay. And what I mean by that is the boat is like your unconscious mind, and the skier is like your conscious mind. Right. And this is our perception of reality. And here's how your brain works. Okay. Is that you have the conscious mind, which is like the part that you're aware about, which the part is that you control and you think you can control. But then you have the unconscious mind, which is all the stuff that's happening in the background of there. And the reality is a lot of times that we think we have an unconscious mind that we are directing where we go, but really you're always being directed by your subconscious mind. You're being directed by the unconscious parts, and you can still have some control, right? Like the skier can continue to kind of go down the pass and can steer over to the left and steer over to the right, but you will eventually go and follow in the direction that your unconscious mind is in. And so that's why it's important that we audit our thoughts. That's why it's important that you actually focus on, creating and building the best version of yourselves. It's important that you focus on what your vision is, because when you're doing that, you're starting to train your unconscious, your subconscious, to look for what it is that you want and to desire, to seek and to train and to focus it on what you want. Because if what you want is over here, and if what you don't want is over here, you can't see what you want. Like if they're, and by the way, they usually probably are in different directions, like more likely than not. It's like, if this is what you want, then what you probably don't want is this, right? If you're looking at what you don't want, can you even see what you want? And so it's important that you focus and orient your direction towards what is important to you and what you actually want. And I want to challenge you guys to have some vision before this upcoming year. We talked about in NLG, I know Jonathan shared the selfie yesterday. Already got the book. I don't know, Jonathan, how you got that so fast, but so we said it on the NLG call, and then like 30 minutes later, someone's knocking on Jonathan's door. They're like, "Here's your book, Jonathan." Jonathan's got like the book plug if you guys need him. But anyways, NLG, and one of the books that we're reading right now is Good to Great by Jim Collins. And I think this is a really great book that our division's going to read. Everyone's welcome to read it, even if you're not in NLG. The book that I'm going to assign for everybody else is a little bit shorter. So if you want to chime in and hop on that train, you definitely can. But it's really about why some organizations prosper into great organizations and why some, don't really. And the couple of thoughts that I have here, one of the things they talk about in that book is the Stockdale paradox. And we're going to read about this, but I shared this with NLG yesterday. The Stockdale paradox talks about a guy named Stockdale that actually ran for vice president of the United States. And he was actually a Vietnam War prisoner. So he was held captive in Vietnam for over 7 years as a prisoner of war there. And, essentially they were doing an interview with him, and they're like, "Hey, so like who made it out of that like camp and who didn't?" And he said, "Oh, that's easy." He's like, "The ones that died were the optimists." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, the optimists." He's like, "The optimists, as soon as we got in there, they're like, oh, well, don't worry. We're going to be out by Christmas time this year. We're going to be good." And then Christmas rolled around. And they're like, "All right, we're going to be out by Easter. It's going to be okay." And then Easter rolled around. And then they said, "We'll be out by Thanksgiving." And then Thanksgiving rolled around. And then Christmas rolled around again. And that probably trend happened a couple more times until their hearts couldn't handle it. And, he's like the people that were too optimistic were the ones that died. They weren't in touch with reality. And I think optimism is good, right? But I also think it's important to be kind of like realistic. And a lot of people, like I share this with NLG, 2020 was a pretty crazy year. There's a lot of just things that have been building up. There's a lot of technological advancements that have been happening. There's just crazier things that are happening around the world. We're literally spinning faster every single year. Like time is speeding up. And it's very, very easy for us to be like, all right, 2021 is going to be epic and great. And it has to be because 2020 was so bad. That's what a lot of people say. And I know for a lot of people on this call, 2020 was a great year for you, as it was for me. But, for a lot of people, it wasn't. And, it's very, very easy to just think just because things were not great this year, they're going to be great next year. But I also want to challenge that belief and say, hey, by the way, a lot of people thought 2008 was going to be bad. And then 2009 was a lot worse. A lot of times we might think something is going to be the way it is, and it's actually a lot worse, right? It's not epic. Like next year could be actually the hardest and most challenging year ever. And I think it's just important to have that awareness. But I want to share with you all that regardless of what happens in the next, year, you are the captain of your own ship. Regardless of, by the way, of who wins the presidential election, you're going to be fine. Because guess what? That person is not going to actually make that much of an effect on your life. You're the person. If you have problems, it's not because of somebody else. It's because of your own decisions and your own actions, and you get a chance to control and impact that. So, last year, I'll just share with you guys personally, this past year, I really did have probably one of the best years of my entire life. And one of the things that I kind of owe and attribute it to is really a 4-day planning session that I did with myself going into 2020 in November last year. I had done this a couple of years before, and we had this thing where, I mean, lots and lots of people did this, but it was called the ACE 2020 Blueprint. And it was all about how to align your goals and your vision to have your best year ever. And then the craziness ensued. But, I really did have, despite all that stuff going on, I had one of my best years ever. And a lot of other people that I know did. And I just want to share with you guys from personal experience, a couple of things that I did and that were in my awareness to make sure that, I ensured no matter what was going on in the world, I was going to have a truly epic year. One of those things was circles of influence. Circles of influence. During times when times get harder, are you expanding your circles? Are you more conscientious and aware of who you're hanging out with? Or, are you less aware? Do you start spending time with people that are also negative mindset? When people are scared and there's fear, or people are angry, or whatever else is going on in the world, like, it's important to have a good circle. And I also want to just challenge you guys that, like, look, you've got a good circle here, and I just, you've got people here that care about you, that are excited, that, want to see you thrive. Whether that is your managers or just some of your friends and representatives across the company. And I would really lean into that, during tough times. The second thing is working from vision and not from circumstance. Working from your vision and not from circumstance. People that work from circumstance, it's always about what's going on. It's like, well, I'd like to do that. I'd like to start the company, but I can't because X, Y, Z. Well, I want to sell this much, but we only have these kind of reps on our team. Well, I'd love to perform and be a branch manager, but all this crazy stuff is happening in the world this year. It's like, hey, well, these are my circumstances. So, I can't work and can't do that. Versus working and leading from vision, and being connected to, hey, like, here's what I'm working towards. So here's the decisions that I'm going to be able to make. And when you're connected to that vision, it's easier to see past all the menage and the distractions that are happening of the actual circumstances too. And one thing that really helped me thrive this year was I was continued and constantly connected to my vision and what I was working towards. So when other things happened in the world this summer, I wasn't too worried about it. I wasn't too prepared because I was connected to the vision, the year that I wanted to have, despite what was going on. I actually posted, I'll go ahead and open the link here super fast. Let me see here. I'll post it. 3, 2. This is actually an Instagram post that I made. This is back in April. So before any lockdowns, before any shutdowns, I was actually driving to the office physically at this point. So a lot of y'all started right after this. We're still physically going to an office. We hadn't even switched over to, virtual world yet. And I started talking about this and I said, hey, going into summer, before all lockdowns, before all this stuff ever continued, I say, hey, for most people, I truly believe that, the decisions that you make this summer it's going to make it one of the most important summers of your life. I'm going to play this real quick. Guys, I hope you're doing well on this Thursday. I know there's a lot going on right now in the world, in your family, in your homes, in your businesses, and it can be a lot to deal with. And I have some pretty strong thoughts on exactly what's going on right now, and I shared those this past Monday on the podcast if you haven't heard it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what's going on in the world or what your opinion is of what's going on, because you can only control what you can control. And so here's the reality of the situation. The reality is that summer of 2020 is the most important summer of your entire life. So far it is. I can guarantee you that the summer of 2020 will go down in the record books as one of two things. And your life, your legacy, your family's lives, or your future family's lives will be determined based off what you do this upcoming, the next 4 to 5 months, the next summer of 2020, because it will either go down as the summer that broke you, the summer that screwed you, right? Everything was going right until that summer of 2020, or this will be known formally for the rest of your life as the summer that made you. And when everything else in the world went to shit, you went to work and you built. And that's what I'm doing right now, guys. I know I haven't been posting on social media very much because I have 4 companies that I'm running right now, and they all require 100% of my attention and engagement during these time periods. So I haven't been on social media the way I would like to be. But I want to challenge you right now, if you're not on the trajectory that you want to be in 7, 8, 9, 10 years, right? When we look back on this time period, what are you going to be able to say that you did with that time? I'll stop that share real quickly. And that was back in April, by the way, when I actually recorded that too. And I think a lot of people can look back now on that time period, and you all, like, if you're sitting in front of me right now, I really believe like, hey, yeah, what you did this summer, the way that you worked when other people weren't really working, the way that you performed and created opportunities for yourself when other people were, living and going into contractionary time periods. And again, I think regardless of what the next couple years of your life, that actions and those choices that you made this summer are going to continue to impact and fold. So I think another thing that I can just kind of share is that one other thing that I think helps navigate, tough times or creates good years, creates good years and turns them into great years, as we would talk about from Jim Collins, is things when things go to shit, you go to work, right? When things go to shit, you go to work, and there's a chance and a choice that you have to make, and you always have the story that you will tell yourself as, hey, that is what broke me or that is what built me. And I want to challenge you guys as you go into this, whether you're going through D2 right now, whether you're excited about the opportunities that you have this fall, and really carry that into you. And I'll wrap up our talk with this. A couple thoughts that you guys have heard before. Number one, don't let anyone out prepare you. 2, give up who you are for who you can become. You will and feel capable pretty much all the time. So if anyone's like, every single time we learn something new, you're like, dude, and like, what is this? Some of the people that hopped on NLG yesterday, they're like, oh, wow, this is like a lot. Learning is a good process, but you will feel incapable and have no idea what you're doing until you get a little bit of practice. I remember, I'll shout out Nick Dana here, who's on our staff. He called me like a couple times the first few weeks of the fall, and he's just like, I just feel like I'm failing in my job as a sales manager. I'm like, well, you are, because you're just learning. It's okay. That's going to happen. And now fast forward 2 months later, Nick's really doing a great job in his role, and he's starting to lead, and he's starting to be able to develop and influence people and connect with reps and build a great team. And it's really been exciting to see him do that. If you don't feel like quitting, then you're not pushing yourself hard enough. I tell people in your fast start, if you don't feel like quitting at least once, then you should probably get off your butt and do some more demos. You're probably not working hard enough. And whatever is making you insecure, lean into your insecurities. Get secure and get confident about what you're insecure about. Bring that stuff to the surface and lean into that. And confidence is always found through taking action. When you're feeling sorry, when you're feeling sad, the way that you develop confidence is by proving to yourself that you're actually going to do what you go out and say that you're going to do. And when you're having trouble, the solution is always more communication. So the last kind of thing that I'll say about as we enter into our CTC push and our third TLA prep today is that, in the Florida coast, we'll let everyone else think about what they have to do while we simply go out there and do that. And you're from the coast, and that means something. So I want you guys to be able to go into this year and be able to connect as we go in towards the last couple months out of the year, and be able to connect to your own personal vision and be able to lead from that vision going into 2020. But you got to start today. You got to start thinking about it now. You guys will hear from Mike a little bit later about his thoughts on New Year's resolutions. And that's because it starts with a choice in you, not a date. And you have an opportunity each and every single day to be able to connect and to lead from that vision. So I'm going to open things up. As we're kicking things off, any light bulbs or takeaways, guys, here from today from opening comments? And we're going to dive in a little bit into a speed round of our book debrief. Light bulbs? Yeah, Leah.
Yeah, so I really liked the example on optimism. Like, yeah, it's really nice to be positive in hard situations, but be realistic about it, or otherwise you're just going to be disappointed.
Cool. Like that. Yeah, what else? Who else wants to chime in? Yeah, Jess.
You skipped past a slide. You were on it for like 2 seconds, but I wrote it down. It says, I'm not going to tell you it's going to be easy. I'm going to tell you that it's going to be worth it. And I think that that's really important to remember, especially in those times where you feel a little bit incapable and you're still learning. And it's not supposed to be easy, because if it was easy, everyone would do it.
Yeah, if it's easy, we don't want it. If it's easy, it probably isn't worthwhile doing. And by the way, that's like a fundamental fact that I found to be true in life almost always. The majority of the time, if it really is that easy, it's not worth it. If it really is that easy, it's not worth me going towards. Most of the stuff that is significant or meaningful, or you can take pride in, or is majorly impactful on you or your life or your community, it's probably, something that's hard, which makes it worth doing. Right? Thanks, Jess, for chiming in. I love that. Maybe I should have stayed on that slide longer. Let's get one more here, and I'm going to transition things over. Yeah, Rochelle, you got it.
Cool, thank you. So one thing for me, I really liked what you said about driving your unconscious mind with your conscious mind, because a lot of times I know you kind of just take things that come your way, but having that decision in the back of your mind, it'll drive you to stay on track rather than getting lost in a tunnel or something.
I love that. And that's like, that's like why it's the value of submitting like a letter of intent, right? Because you're making a conscious decision that's going to influence the subconscious. And even then, you might be like submitting that letter of intent and you're like, all right, do I, and like going back and forth and back and forth, but you're headed down a road and actual direction and path. And by the way, here's what's happening is when you don't make that decision, you think that the boat's just sitting there in the middle of the lake and you're just not moving, but you're still moving. You just don't know. There's just no one in the boat. That boat's just going full blast, full throttle down, and it's just headed to somewhere that you're in the back of ski and you have no idea where it's going and no control because you haven't made a conscious decision. There is no one driving that unconscious mind. It's just headed in a direction. And it's important to make sure that there's someone and something steering, that boat, right? So we're going to transition here a little bit. And we'll get things kicked off. I'm actually going to skip a little bit of our book debrief. We'll probably do some more on Wednesday, just because we're a little bit behind on time here. So I'm going to go ahead and lean things over or switch things over to our branch manager. And I submitted as a pilot sales manager letter of intent for summer of 2021. Nationally ranked previous branch manager, was an assistant manager before that, was a number one top performing sales rep in his first summer on the job. Had I still like doing these, sometimes we don't talk about this. So had a 15K fast start, and he did virtual demos before it was cool. So I want to bring up our branch manager, previous branch manager, Jonathan Castelli. He's going to give you guys some goods today on how to start a business, which I think is going to be good in general for all of you all that are doctors that want to open up your own practice one day. For those of you all that are branch manager letter of intent submissions and you're ready to rock and roll for next summer. Jonathan was cool. For anyone that is looking and wants to know, how do you get a business off the ground? Because by the way, operating businesses usually aren't that hard. It's not that hard to operate a restaurant. What's hard is to get a successful restaurant off of the ground. It's the starting of the business that most people have the most struggle with too. So I want to have Jonathan chime in and kick things off and give us some good. So Jonathan, switching things over to you.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you. So this is a talk that particularly I'm really, really excited to give. One of the main reasons why is because actually Mr. Evans gave this talk either last year's prep with Jeff or the year before. And it's what really kind of sparked my my interest in branch, and not only that, just in business in general. Personally, myself, I'm a pre-med major, as I think Mr. Evans just said. As probably a lot of you already know as well too, but I have a lot of love for business as well, also owning one on the side. So in this talk, we're gonna go over like just how to start a business, essentially the ins and out, and really what's important to focus on as well too. So let me go ahead and get this shared. Perfect. Okay. So first things first, there's value in learning how to start a business. For a lot of you, especially if you're business majors, you're business hungry, that's your passion. For others who probably this is something that you want to explore as well too. Whatever it is, it's really, really important that you really know how to start and lead and take a business. Especially when we talk about Cutco, there's really just a difference between the offices who got it going with like PR set and really were on the ball with taking action early. And of course, the sales numbers, between those actions and within those offices, guys, the differences are very, very large. Okay, very, very large. When you look at the actions taken by offices that sold, $50,000 to $60,000 for the summer, which probably they could have just went out as a sales rep, and with their previous experience, probably sold just as much or even more. Versus like offices that sold over 100 grand or so and had a really, really successful summer. The margin is not really that big, by that many actions. Okay. And what you don't necessarily hear sometimes, is that sometimes it's not even about the work ethic. Okay. It's not necessarily a work ethic. You know, you can be a really, really good PR caller, for example. You can be a phenomenal PR caller, but you know, you have a lack of PRs. If you don't have any PRs, you're not going to be able to set people up. You're not going to be able to drive your business, you know, and a lot of that is due to how you set up that first month. Okay. Essentially how you set up the business, and that first month and a half before you go into the summer is extremely crucial. You know, you can, it's funny. Something that I learned this past summer as a branch is that, you know, you can put in 80% of the effort, okay? 80% of the effort and literally get like 10 to 20% of the results, okay? You can put in 80% of the effort and get 10 to 20% of the results, okay? But the moment you put in that 90 to 100% effort, that extra 10 or 20%, guys, your results skyrocket. Now you're going to talking about getting 90 to 100% of the results, okay? And, you know, that's 10 times more results. And it's not that you got 10 times better. It's that there are just a couple different things that you did differently to set yourself up, you know? So as Mr. Evans just said, the problem isn't necessarily operating the business. You know, a lot of times it's just getting the business going. And that's really, really what the hard part is necessarily. You know, just aside from Cutco and life, you know, a lot of people will think that, you know, the main thing is like, hey, you know, you got to have an idea, you got to have a product. Okay. But, you know, I'll kind of share this with you. You know, ideas really aren't worth anything. Okay. Like, guys, like, you know, there's a lot of people who think that they have like this revolutionary like idea that's going to like change the world. Guy, I guarantee you 20,000 other people have that idea. Okay. Ideas aren't worth anything. Okay. Guy, like the value isn't the idea. The value is learning how to execute that idea at a high level. You know, like the difference between two people with an idea, you know, that becomes successful is one, you know, the biggest thing that matters is the ability to execute, you know, and the lack of execution, you know. And, you know, as far as that execution, it's like, you know, your marketing plan, you know, can you make sure you connect with the right individuals within that niche, within that circle, within that industry? You know, can you hire the right coworkers, consultants? You know, if we talking about I don't know if we're talking about like developing an app, you know, like, can you find you know, a designer to make a really, really good design, you know, and that's hard enough as it is. But after that, can you make sure it's on a great platform? Can you deliver that? And can you deliver that to a massive amount of people, you know, like, for example, I don't know, we do Uber Eats giveaways in our office a lot. So, you know, Uber Eats is a phenomenal app, right? It's a phenomenal app, but I'll be honest with you, I'm pretty sure like 10,000 other people could have thought of like, I wonder if we just made an app that, you know, restaurants can just ship their foods to, and people can order it off of this app, you know, like it was a great idea, but, you know, like, you can have it, but can you get restaurants, you know, to actually invest and put their product and services on? And can you get that out to the masses as well too, and get them to use it? So guys, I think that this, you know, just learning how to start a business is, you know, it's an important skill. I think it's one of the most transferable skills, you know, out of the skills that you're going to learn in Cutco, and you're going to learn a lot. For sure. And I think, you know, especially running a branch is going to help you. And of course, this talk is going to help you kind of like cultivate those skills as well too. So we'll go ahead and dive into it. I've got a couple quick keys for you, so you guys can go ahead and write down some notes. So number one, with starting a business, guys, you got to educate yourself within the business. Okay. You got to educate yourself within the business. You got to know the market. Okay, you got to know the market. Who is your target market? Who's your target audience? You know, with growth to success, whenever we're sitting down with clients or businesses or corporations that, you know, are trying to, you know, get part of our services, you know, the biggest thing that we're asking is like, hey, who's your target market? What, like, how are you trying to reach that? How exactly, like, how does your business work? What is that environment in which you're in? You know, for example, like in Cutco's sense, you know, or actually, let me share this example. For example, Elon Musk, like on an interview, he was just asked, hey, you're in Tesla, Space Force, you did this, you have so many stuff. Same thing goes for Jeff Bezos. One of the things that he was sharing was that like, hey, before I even get into that field, before I even like start that business, I spent hours and hours on hours just reading about the market, reading about that niche, and learning every single thing that I can. We're transferring that to Cutco, and even before I even go to Cutco, I just want to say, like you want to be investing in yourself. Like I think about reading books and podcasts. Yesterday on NLG, we had a question. I'm about to butcher it, but it was something pertaining to what are you doing right now to make yourself better, or something like that. What are you doing right now to perform at a high, something along those lines, okay? And one of the biggest things for me was like, reading and investing in books. Like Mr. Evans said, I have a lot of books as well too, and I'm constantly reading, listening to podcasts. This isn't a plug, but I mean, guys, Ace Weekly, like learn, make sure you're expanding your mind and knowledge as well too. One thing that I heavily did starting or going into my branch summer that I really believe strongly set me up was just watching a lot of Vector Connect videos. Guys, I dove into those Vector Connect videos. Let me teach you something. When you go on vectorconnect.com and you click on the 3 little lines on the top left, okay, there's a drop-down menu. You can go on library, click on videos, and they have an arsenal of videos from the top managers in the entire history of the company. You can watch their talks on different topics, like guys, watch those videos, put the time in to better yourself. Realistically, it's only going to make you better. It's only going to make your profits better. And it's only going to give you a better summer, so making sure that you're watching the videos. And I think the biggest thing is selling, for me, especially like with the January push, I absolutely knocked that out of the park as well too. I got on the trip, but the biggest thing for me as far as selling, there's 3 things that I think are really important to, if you want to branch, and forget even branch, if you just want to set yourself up for any type of managerial position, number 1, capital. You want to have startup. Whether you're an AM or a branch, you want to have startup, and selling is going to get you that startup. Okay. Number 2, it just increases your confidence. The reason why Mr. Evans said, like, hey, if you're not really at 30K yet, you're still learning. In fact, I'd like to push that envelope a little bit. If you're not at 50K, like you're not at that level of confidence. Like I don't know, guys. When I hit 50K, it's like my eyes open up and I was like, oh, this is how this works. Oh, like Cutco is pretty simple. Like guys, like sell more. It raises your confidence. You're put in more scenarios. You're put in more scenarios in which like you're able to figure it out, right? And I mean the handling objection skills, guys, learning how to talk to people, building rapport, that's important. That's transferable to whatever you do in life as well too. And then the third thing is just that, and this is personally something that I truly believe in. Guys, you never want to go out into an office, and you're not even at, I don't know, like a 20K, and you're trying to like coach like 20K reps, or you have reps that outsell you for the summer. Like last thing you want is a rep to outsell you for the summertime. Okay. As well too. So those are the main 3 things, as far as selling. So making sure that you're educating yourself in the business. Another thing that I think about whenever starting a business is, being creative, being intuitive. When we talk about this portion, essentially, it's like, hey, if this wasn't Cutco, what would you be doing to get your name out there? You got to start brainstorming ideas. Where's your target market? Where's that focus? For example, if it's Cutco, before COVID-19 times, like, hey, our target market is like high schoolers or college kids, right? So where are they? Where would they be on like a Thursday night? We used to do active ad, which is like literally just actively advertising in person. So like going out to malls or shopping centers or wherever there are, and you can take that, where is your target market? Essentially, we're working with Growth Success, one of the, I think like the 3rd largest health insurance agency in the entire country right now. And one of the main things, it's like, we're talking about, hey, how can we expand their business, get them more business? The biggest thing is like, hey, where is your target market? How can you reach them? And you got to be creative with learning how to get to them as well too. There's a lot of programs inside of Cutco as well too, but you can't limit yourself to those programs. We've got a lot of different stuff. We've got mailers, we've got Craigslist, web ads as well too. But you can't necessarily limit yourself because you can't really rely too much on PRs coming to you. Okay, so you've got to go out and get the PRs. Okay, so what can you do to get there? I think about, and we're gonna kind of go over this a little bit more, and especially throughout the day and in this message, I think about making sure that you're having friends on the team that can help you PR. I'm thinking about, getting receptionists and SMRAs as well too. I'm thinking about social media and utilizing that. And we're going to actually go through those here as well too. So, getting creative, how can you get your name out there? And if this is Cutco as well too, finding different avenues to advertise. And we'll dive into a little bit of those in just a little bit. I think about getting to your territory early. Okay, getting to your territory early. And for a lot of people, this used to be kind of like the difference between, like a really good summer and not really, really good summer. The reason why is because the reason why you want to get to your territory early, and especially even now where it's virtual, essentially. Yeah, and essentially now where it's virtual is because you really, really want to make sure that you give yourself enough buffer room for whatever challenges come at you, okay? Guys, business is always changing. If we just look at this last summer, we went from in-person, and then 1 week hit, everything got shut down. And we immediately went completely virtual as well too. So you want to give yourself that room as well. It also allows you to start setting up different functions in your office, getting SMRAs in, getting some reps in early before the summer starts to help kick off that PR chain as well too, okay? So you also get to start your 5-star interviews and SMRAs. Now, I'm going to go ahead and dive into this just super, super quickly, but, 5-star interviews, that's something that I really, really, really stressed on in the start of this summer. Colton Horn, which was last year's Silver Cup winner. Number one thing that he did, starting from January, in fact, starting from October, because he already knew the territory he was going to go in, he started running interviews with the top 5-star recruits in his areas, one-on-one steroid interviews, and had a massive, massive training class set up for his first year, for his first training class, rather. That's something I tried to emulate, 5-star interviews, and to be honest, a lot of those people aren't going to convert, especially if you're setting them so far out. But, even if you're setting 100 studs, guys, I'm talking about top recruits, and you're even getting let's be honest, 10 of them to start off your summer, guys, you're still starting off with a bang, an absolute bang. If you're getting 10, potential 10K fast starters that are just going to PR and kick off your summer as well too. For me specifically, I think about Gabriel Tejada. Gabriel was someone that, I had an interview with in January, okay? In January, Gabriel didn't, and I was actually kind of training him and prepping him on becoming, like an AMI for the summer. Didn't necessarily pan out, but one of the things that he helped me with, he already started telling his friends about the position. That goddess, Natalia Tejada, his cousin who had a 4K first weekend, she recommended Anthony Taylor and Cheka, all three of which were, I think, 2-3 grades under me in high school. I just didn't have a contact with them. And essentially Anthony Taylor and Cheka both did over $25,000 for the summer as well too, So making sure that you're doing 5-star interviews. I also think about Spencer Trujillo, who specifically set up a 5-star interview with in the beginning of this summer as well too, and helped kick off our summer. And I'll kind of go into that in a little bit as well. I think about getting SMRAs, and I won't spend too much time on this because because we have another talk with that as well too. But making sure you're getting SMRAs. You know, Spencer was from an SMRAs. Kipu Kalani, who finished off, I think like top 25 rep in the entire nation, sold over 40K for the summer from our office, was from SMRAs as well too. You know, helping kick off your summer and getting you into those right networks, and essentially helping you scale out. You know, I think about utilizing social media. Okay, this is huge, especially luckily this year we've got the social media messaging program. But, you know, aside from that, I also think about like having people advertise from you, you know, creating your own personal social media D-Day. I know we do that as a division, but having that on your own, you know, pay your friends $10 for posting for you, you know, like for example, you know, a lot of your friends have like 1,000 people, 2,000 people on Instagram. You know, if you throw up a post, 1,000 people see that post, you're going to get a lot of Google form leads and a lot of recruits to help you kick off your summer. You know, another thing that I think about, if you're going to a territory that you don't necessarily have set up yet, you know, this wasn't something I personally had to do, but this was thrown about in the planning calls, is, you know, college emails. You know, connect with somebody in that territory, let them know, hey, this is my vision, this is what I'm starting up a business, you know, let me pay you like $20. Can you just go ahead and blast everybody in like your top college and send out a bunch of emails, you know, figure out your top schools and ask them to make posts with your links as well too, after connecting with individuals there. You know, I think about Facebook messaging. You know, Instagram is going to be a very, very key component. It was last summer, and I think it still will be. Well, of course, it still will be this summer, but I think also about Facebook messaging, you know, not letting that die out. You know, I think, you know, 2018 or so, the #1 AM team builder had 28 social media PRs coming from Facebook messaging. So I think that's somewhere where we can't let die out, you know, and my list kind of ends there, but this can continue, you know, with starting a business, whether it's Cutco or wherever in life, you got to be creative, you got to be innovative, you know, especially with Cutco, guys, you've got a 1 month window to make things happen. You know, you spend 9 months in TLA cultivating and training skills, you know, like imagine because of lack of preparation and planning, you don't have anyone to use those skills on for the summer. Okay. And so during that month, that month period, and I'll even go as far as to say, you know, maybe 2 months, even 3 months before that, you know, be aggressive, you know, some other things that are coming to mind right now, you know, is training. I think, even though a lot of you aren't going to be running training, like watch training. You know, it's going to help you, you know, just it's streamlined with what you're delivering to your reps and what they're going to hear when they come into the interview. You know, and another thing that I have here on the slide that I'll just go over really, really quickly is just duplicate your best people. You know, and when we're talking about scalability, you know, scaling out to a massive summer, it really just comes down to duplicating your best people. You know, I think in our office, you know, #1 person I can highlight, Spencer Trujillo, #1 rep for the summer. Okay. #1 rep for the summer, other than Kipu, who sold over 40K. Spencer did about 25,000. Guys, I sat down with Spencer on multiple occasions after his fast start. Hey, Spencer, this is what we're building. This is what we're trying to accomplish. Who can we get on the team? Spencer recommends Benny Sedlock. Benny did over $20,000 for the summer. Okay. Absolutely kicked off our summer. I noticed there's a little bit of a dip in July. I sat back down with Spencer, who can we get on this team? Who's going to crush the team? Okay. And admittedly, he didn't necessarily come directly from Spencer, but now today we have Trevor Borden, absolute stud, knocked it out with an 11K fast start as well too, and he's on this call right now. What's up, Trevor? So guys, you know, duplicate your best people, and Spencer had a lot more other individuals. I think about like Kipu Kalani, who helped kick off our summer into the University of Miami market as well too, you know. And last thing, you know, I'd say as I'm wrapping up and as we're cutting it off here is, you know, just developing that culture. You know, when we're talking about scaling, you can have the people, you can have the systems, you can have the program, you can have the strategy, but truly, if you don't have the culture, you're not going to go anywhere. You know, Brian Hurlman loves to say, culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And personally, I'm a firm believer in that. You know, if you have a culture of team builders, winners, high performance mindset, you know, a culture of just fun, more people are going to want to work there, more people are going to perform at a higher level, and your business is going to grow exponentially. It's something that Paige Weber, a $1 million DM in her first year, highly recommends that we focus on in the business. So guys, when you're starting a business, this is just part one. There's part two coming whenever Mr. Evans asks you to do it. But you want to focus on being creative, innovative as well too, and especially with Cutco, kicking off your summer the right way. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's get some snaps and claps, some gangster daps. Jonathan Castell. Hey, a couple of things Jonathan mentioned and echoed in that. And I had Jonathan get this message because Jonathan has always gotten off the really strong starts and strong launches. Getting off to a strong start in business is just like your fast start. And I think if you've coached fast starters or if you've had a fast start before, it's very similar of, hey, there's a power momentum. If you read when we read Jim Collins' Good to Great, it's going to talk about the flywheel and the idea of how to gain momentum in business. And one of the biggest things that I have duplicated from the time that I've learned at Cutco is how to launch businesses, how to get something going. The reason Ace Weekly podcast became one of the top 100 business podcasts in the country, the first day that it was released, it wasn't because I didn't have any big name guests. There wasn't a lot to it yet. It was just because I knew really well from doing it, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 times opening an office and starting the companies, how to launch a project and how to really get something going until it catches its own momentum and speed. That day, by the way, I personally texted 2,000 people. I texted so many people on that day that we launched the show that Apple literally shut my phone off. My phone stopped working around like 6 o'clock and I was like tweaking out because I was trying to finish, communicating with people. I had to go to the Apple store the next day. They had to give me a new phone. And then it still didn't work. And they're like, oh, that's because Apple iMessages literally, let me see, yes, probably. That's because Apple iMessages literally blocked me off of the channels because I had sent out too many messages and they thought I was like a robot or something. So let's just give that as an example, but it's the same concepts. And by the way, to Jonathan's point, every business is the same. That's why I also they mentioned working on the business, not just in the business, and learning really, can you understand how our business model works? When you understand the business model, you're able to navigate and lead it more effectively. And when you understand our business model, you're going to understand the business model and the nature of other businesses, because most businesses are pretty similar. And I can personally tell that from running money. It's why people can come to me at this point. I've done so many businesses that doesn't really matter what the industry is. I can usually coach people pretty easily on how to get that business going because it's very similar principles. Last thing that he mentioned is just duplicating your best people, I think, is one of the biggest things. Audrey Cruz is on this call. Audrey has summer, typically, I don't know the exact amount of number, but Audrey had pretty low recruiting wise and didn't have very strong recruiting numbers as you typically want as a branch. She still ran a pretty kick-ass branch. And one of the reasons, by the way, that she got success from it is she just, I think the majority of her summer came from 4 or 5 reps, but she had, boom, first 10K fast starter, went off to a launch. And what did she do? The next week after she had that 10K fast starter, she had that person's friend in and had another 10K fast starter. And what did she do? The next week she had, or maybe went in a week or two, boom, she had one of those people's friends and boom, another 10K fast starter, and then duplicated that again. And literally every single week, there was just another 10K fast starter in the Ocala office that was starting trading this summer. So can you find a way to you have those people on your team? Can you duplicate them and build the culture around them? Thanks for chiming in. Thanks for sharing, Jonathan. All right, before we go to break, we're going to take one last message here, and this is going to be a follow-up to SMRA. So here's the deal. That's how to start a business, how to launch your office and get things off the ground and running. How we start our business and our company and model is primarily through SMRAs. SMRAs are if the summer is a fire, that the recruits are the logs and you want to get that thing going, this is your Kickstarter. This is your fire starter. That is the SMRAs. That is how you get the fire started, is by tackling the SMRA program. The first step is actually, talking about how do you find and target good SMRAs, and then how do you actually go about doing the hiring process with them too. So to give us some goods on that, we have a special guest speaker, who, by the way, they don't need to come on here too. He's just coming on to contribute and help out and lead our TLA class. So thanks for covering out the time on Saturday. Our district manager for Clearwater at AWS Boss. And he's still finishing out some PDI calls. I love it.
That was exactly what was happening.
Like, all right, I gotta talk with Steve. Like,
Yep. I was like, I gotta go. All right. So I'm excited to get to talk to everybody today about the SMRA program. So Mr. Evans, if you could please co-host me so that I can share my wonderful PowerPoint that I created. I hope everyone's abs are ready for a little bit of laughter because I have some really bad jokes that I planned into my talk today. So hope that's okay. 1 with bad jokes, 2 with some knowledge, and 3, no, that's actually just 2. So let's roll into it. All right. So let me make sure, get my portion control all right. You guys remember from that Zoom talk I gave on setting all that up? Come on for me. There we almost, and boom. Nope, and nope. Come on, Zoom. All right, buddy. There we go. Okay. So gotta love it. It always makes life easy for me. So today I want to talk to everybody about the SMRA program. Why is it important? Tactics and strategies to it. This will coincide very closely with Jonathan's talk, especially with starting a business. And this is going to be a lot of the gears that you can use and steps that you can take, especially in launching your business at a high level. With that, then giving you the tactics and strategy between finding and hiring an SMRA, understanding what is a good SMRA, what is not a good SMRA. And then just some with that. Towards the end, I'll wrap us up on a recruiting mentality and key points while you're hiring, and better said, setting the expectation of SMRAs, managing and working with them. So first off, just really, why is the SMRA program important? It's for several different reasons. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen here in a moment so you can really just pay attention and listen to me. So you'll probably write down as I say them. I didn't create a slide with like the points of it. I will have points on others, but really just why it's important. First one, and especially I can say this confidently, why it was really important for myself and moreover for anybody else. But what happens if you're a branch manager, or what happens if you just live anywhere and you are starting a business somewhere else? And how do you tap in? First, sorry, I'm closing a $3,000 cookware order. What was the first 3 items and fourth one? Cool. All right. And so with that is that why it's important. So what happens if you're going into a new territory and you're not from the area, you don't have an immediate connection? One of the things, and this is how I basically really understood it for myself, was that, well, I was a really great recruiter in Miami because I was very plugged into the community. I'm from Miami. A lot of the PRs that I had were from my area, you know, and people like those that they know. You know, step number 1 to a sale is building rapport, establishing a connection, because people buy from those they like. People buy the idea of working anywhere from those that they like, right? So SMRAs are that immediate plug because people are already bought into that person. So them selling the opportunity is much easier than you as a random person. And you can still do a great job of it, but that's the idea, right? And so that's why it's especially very important, because it taps you into networks right away. One of the big things, and I'll never forget it, just because I wasn't born into this, but I always like paid attention to it. Mr. Evans, so 2016 was when I had first started. And before 2016, mailers, you would send out letters in the mail, and otherwise you would typically just get applicants through some form of web source. So mailers were known as being like the literal cream of the crop, best possible people you can get into your office. Like as a branch manager, you were just waiting for those mailers to drop and for those to come in, because that's when you were going to start getting all your quality and your summer would explode. And so the PR program really brought this forward, and then the SMRA program brought that to the literal forefront, where we don't have to wait for any of that. We just start off right there. And so SMRAs are basically like mailers 5.0, highest quality right away, stud. And so, and you can write this into your notes, it's recruiting the recruiters. That's why the SMRA program is so important. You are recruiting the recruiters. That's the key here. You want the recruiters the people that are plugged in, because they're going to be the ones that pull everything forward for you. So recruiting the recruiters is really why the SMRA program is so key. It taps you into networks. It gives you the credibility that you need within the area, and it recruits the recruiters. So now, and here's a bigger point, especially failure to prepare is preparing to fail. There's a famous quote by Benjamin Franklin. I first heard it my freshman year in high school from my math teacher, and I didn't expect it to stick as much as it did, but this singular quote has followed me my entire life and changed everything for me for the better. So long as anything I do, I stick with this quote. So when I saw this, I figured, so prepare for success. So long as I prepare for success, I will have success. Now let's look at what is a good SMRA. Because then from here, we're going to move into the tactics and the strategy and how do you find these good SMRAs. And then we'll wrap up with the recruiting mentality and setting the expectation once you have them. So, well, you all tell me, which one's a better SMRA? The one on the right or the on the left? All right, how about this one? Who's a better SMRA? The one on the left, the one on the right? You tell me. All right, actually, you tell me. Who's a better SMRA? The one on the left or the one on the right?
I think left.
Yeah, it's close. It's close. It's close. You made good guess. Good guess. It's hard to distinguish who would be a good SMRA, right? So what's a good SMRA? What is a good SMRA? This is going to be someone that has, 1,500 or more followers. They're clearly social, right? They're clearly social. There's someone that is social, that is obvious, right? You want to recruit the recruiters. They're going to be the ones that are surrounded by others. So group photos, they do extracurriculars. You can see that they're a social person. Women, okay? A good SMRA is going to be a woman. No, seriously, I tried it. Dudes suck as SMRAs. I've tried it like literally every single time. They're really not good. So don't bother. I lost money on it. Don't bother. Having active followers, right? So they actually have people that are actively liking their photos, because one thing is that they could have, 5,000 followers, but then they only have, 200 likes. It's like, okay, where's the activity here? They're clearly either they're fake, they're not real, or no one's engaging. You can think of a cheerleader vibe if you want to run with the stereotype of a cheerleader, just because, that picturesque stereotype of a cheerleader, they're going to be surrounded by those types of people. And they most likely go to a top school, right? Because again, the idea is that they're going to tap you into networks. So if you can find a couple SMRAs from every single school, you're going to be immediately plugged into every single spot, right? So this is understanding what a good SMRA is. Now let's look at finding good SMRAs. So finding some good SMRAs comes down to pretty simple things. You can take a picture. There's also going to be a document that'll be extended. But so first is just searching by accounts. So if you go on to Instagram, there's going to be a small drop down arrow to the right of on their profile, to the right of it, that'll say follow and message, right? So there'll be that option on those profiles, and it'll then provide you suggested followers. You can go to maxpreps.com. Maxpreps.com. It is literally for literally every single high school in America is registered on MaxPreps. And on there, it will have their JV teams and their varsity teams. And it'll have their rosters, and high schools will submit their rosters. By and large, most all of them do. Some may not. But with it, they'll submit rosters of their athletes, of which you can use to search and find them on Facebook and Instagram. The worst case scenario with MaxPreps is that it might be like a year or two outdated, and then you just trail it back, which is fine. So you just trail it back. And you have to understand, especially like popular people, they tend to hang out with other popular people, which is generally how it works. And so you just find one of them They post a group photo. You click on it so that it pulls up all the tags, all the people that are tagged in it. And then from there, you just follow the rabbit hole of those that were tagged in the picture. Schools and clubs. So high schools, they typically all have Instagram accounts. Different clubs of the high school will have Instagram accounts. Just go through the followers and the following, and that's a very easy way to find a ton of them. Search by location, so college or the high school name, so you can just have it immediately accessed. So this way you can just walk through it and it'll offer you all those different people that have tagged that college or tagged that high school. You can even just go by popular location. So you can literally just search for me, Clearwater, and I can just have anyone at all that has gone through it and put Clearwater, or perhaps tagged the school as the location of the photo. And that is an easy way to find different ways of verifying who they are. My favorite one was literally whenever they post a group photo, and I would just sit down on my phone or on my computer, and I would just go through, and I'm just going through Instagram. And yeah, I felt like a stalker for sure, because I'm literally just going through a ton of people. But you know, I'm going through each individual person, and I'm clicking through them, and that's it, right? And it's showing me all of them, and then I just follow that rabbit hole. And basically, you know, before I even knew it, I had a ton of the different people all written down. So you'll be offered this as well, and I'll go ahead and share my screen onto this. But so, you know, you'll have a document that emphasizes exactly this. You know, use a female account to message. And this is going to be especially a bigger key. So something that helped me, guys. So ladies, you're in a good spot. Your life should probably be pretty easy comparatively. Guys, make lady friends, ask them for their help. That's literally what I did. I had my friend Mackie and my other friend Sarah, and they came on, and Sarah got me Chloe, and Mackie got me Tiana, which were my first two SMRAs, which really catapulted the summer forward. And then following before. So making sure, especially when it comes to SMRAs, and I tried this one again, please trust me on this, 1,500 or more followers, like 1,500 or more followers, generally less than that doesn't tend to work well for different small factors or larger factors, but just generally doesn't tend to bode well on the long run. And so 1,500 followers, target the top schools in your area. You want them to be attractive and classy. Look, this is, and I say this in the most kind manner I can. Attractive people tend to be more successful in life. You can look at any freaking study you want in the world, every single one. And with that, moreover, when it comes to recruiting, people like pretty people. That's why attractive people generally tend to be more successful in the world, is because attractive people, just that's the case. Your popular people will more often than not be attractive. And so that's a big piece. So attractive and classy, that's going to be a good sign to a better SMRA. Now, do they need to be a model? Like, no, right? They can still be very pretty. If you have a model, it doesn't hurt either. Doesn't hurt either, but same idea. Generally tends to bode better. And then just that they're clearly social. Now, the other thing right here, so when I go through it, I'll literally do, you know, I'll have them here. I'll be like, okay, so she posted that. Let's see Kylie. And then I'll go through Kylie. And then, okay, so now Kylie's making this easy for me. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to write down Kylie. And then I have her here so I can get Caitlin. And then I can do, you know, open a link here. And I'll open a link there. And then I'll open a link there. Right. And so now I got Caitlin. All right, cool. Enough followers. All right, cool. Enough followers. All right, cool. Enough followers. So then what I would do is I would have, and this is where preparing for success is key. And I want to ask y'all this. Do you all think, this is a rhetorical question, do you all think that before the summer, you know, 2 weeks beforehand, I started doing all of this? And that's how I created a 400K plus summer? Now, when do y'all want to take a guess I started doing all of this? Yeah. Like now, or within the next, like, you know, by the end, like 2021, like I'm just, and it wasn't like a lot. It was very minimal. Like I'd watched The Office, like the show The Office with Dwight Schrute and Michael Scott, etc. And I'd just be sitting at home or wherever I was, and I would just sit there, or like I'm hanging, like I'm just bored, or I'm just doing anything else. I'm gonna go on Instagram anyway. I might as well just make money while I go on Instagram. And literally, I'll be on Instagram for like 10 minutes, and I just start going through hot girls pictures, and I'm just taking screenshots and I'm putting it into a folder, and then I go back, and when I have time, then I sit by my computer and I just type them in. Like, yeah, it's funny, but like, come on, it works. Like it's the program. It does function this way. So with that, and I sat down and I did this on Facebook. I did this on Instagram. I went through all of my own personal. And so on Facebook, I wrote down 1,300 other people on Facebook. And I tried to find as many of the schools that I could. And then on Instagram, so then I made rep targets. So these are going to be people I'm going to message for reps. But then I also had my RA targets. So I had 317 people I found on Facebook that I was going to go, have them on the side, start friending and messaging. And then I had another 480 handles on Instagram of people that I was going to target for SMRAs. So going into the summer, I already had, 2,600. I basically had over 3,000 leads that myself and anyone else that I could onboard to help me out would be able to help me out. So I'd be able to get out, 300 to 500 messages in the beginning of the summer. Then I got SMRAs on, and then they're doing the same thing. So then every week we're sending out like 1,000 messages. This is the bigger piece to it. This is where, and when this is executed properly, because you prepared for it and you use the SMRA program, and this allowed us where it's not even the summer yet, and we already had 150 people set on a week to start. And this is where we had 71 people set for a training. 71 people set for a training the weekend going into the summer. Like that is a game. Like that's like, all right, my summer's here. My summer's here. I'm not waiting for anything. I'm good to go. And that's where my lowest week of the summer was 15 grand. Every other week, we sold over 20 grand. Every single week. We never went below. And it all came back from the SMRA program. So with that, easiest way to find good SMRAs is literally my favorite one was just go down the rabbit hole and just write them down, and then write it onto a Google Excel sheet and just make it easy for yourself. So the last thing is just the recruiting mentality and setting the expectation. And I've had people that have asked me, and other managers in different divisions and different regions that have reached out to me asking about when it comes to the SMRA program and managing them. So a couple main things that you really have to understand. One, SMRAs, they're not sales reps. The beauty of being a sales rep is that you have flexibility and autonomy. Work as much as you prefer, and you work with them, right? This is where 1 Minute Manager comes in. SMRAs are not 1099 independent contractors. They're W-2 employees. I'm going to say that again. They're W-2 employees. I'm going to say it one more time. They're W-2 employees. They don't have choice. They don't have autonomy. They don't get to choose their schedule. This is my business. Well, the money that you make, the hourly rate comes out of my pocket. You work these hours. This is how it works. If they can't make it work, goodbye. I'm going to hire another SMRA. And this is where especially, Mr. Evans teaches it, but the abundance versus scarcity mindset. When you operate from an abundant mindset and you operate from a scarce mindset, you're always going to have more SMRAs so long as you continue sending out messages. Yeah, I'd be worried about me losing that one SMRA if I'm not doing anything on my end to find another SMRA. Yeah, sure, I'd freak out. But so long as you're actually doing the actions, you'll never have to worry about having more SMRAs. So, and I make that clear, like I pay you. This is your job. You working these hours is what allows me to pay you. It's not like I employ you. And so they're an employee. So first is just, and you make this clear. So then I also have had other managers in different divisions and regions ask me, what do you tell them? I read the script. the script says this, and I make it clear. And it's not a question, but I make it clear, but the script says this. Read the script. Fundamental number 1, follow the manual, follow the manual, follow the manual, follow the manual. It's in there. And then the rest of that, and then from here, when you have them and you're going to be training them, you're setting the expectation where this is how it's going to work. All right, you're in this rotation, and it's a rotational position. You're going to be in this position, and then on this day, we're going to train you on this, and you're going to rotate into this position. And on this day, we're going to train you for this, and you're going to rotate into this position. Period, period, period. Period, period, period. So with that, these are just some recruiting mentality, especially. So going through it again with the SMRA program, understanding why it's important. And the reason why it's important is that it's going to be what taps you into your target networks. It's going to be the recruiting of the recruiters, and it's going to help you, immediately start off and catapult your business. Remembering that failure to prepare is preparing to fail. So do prepare for success. Remember what a good SMRA is. It's the one on the left. Fun fact, it's the one on the left. This is your best SMRAs, the ones on the left. Avoid the guys. A good SMRA has 1,500 or more followers in their social. Finding them, use Max Preps, search by accounts, or just follow the rabbit hole. And remember that they are employees.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Eddie, for giving us some goods there in terms of how to target. And Eddie is someone that's developed and built a lot of SMRAs. By the way, there's SMRAs that are from Eddie's great SMRA program here on this call, and some of our top TLA performers too. So here's a couple of things that I'll just echo after that Eddie said too. Is like, again, yeah, the key is like, you want to find this, like, think about it like influencer. Like, that's what you're really trying to find. It's the SMR. You're trying to find influencers. What that means is people that have influence in an audience. There's people that follow them. So, that can mean, hey, finding someone that is very attractive, finding someone that is very involved, like in school, and like either they're like a big name on one of their sports teams. They are just someone that doesn't look involved, just look like a popular person in school. They're one of the most academically successful people in the school. You want people that, like, when you say, oh, so-and-so is one of our social media recruiting assistants, people are like, oh, okay, cool. Then, and you can have someone from the same school and you say, oh yeah, blank is working with us. And they go, oh, yeah. And then there's people like, oh, wait, blank's here? Seriously? I remember Mila Amy, who's basically the creator of the SMRA program in Naples. She had this girl now has like 1 million followers on social media. At the time, she didn't, but she was in there. And that Mila had a $250,000 branch. And she said, like, the number one thing that helped her was just having Olivia Ponton on her team, because as an SMRA, because literally no matter who she called in Naples, everyone knew who she was. And they're like, Olivia works here? And they're like, all right, sure, I'll check it out, I guess, and those are the people that you want. You want to bring those people as your ends, and it's going to be able to create more of a market there for you too. And then again, yes, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but 2 things just to clarify. Number 1, you will create an SMRA list, and you don't need to do that until January. If you have been promoted to a branch manager and you've received the territory, then you will start to build that SMRA list in the spring as we get closer to the summer of a target list, so you can kind of kickstart the summer. And the last thing is too, we'll get into clarification of that, but yes, SMRAs and employees, so the way that you handle and manage them is slightly different than sales reps. If a sales rep doesn't show up to a meeting, it's a completely different conversation than when an employee doesn't show up to a scheduled shift that they're being paid hourly for. There's not as much, there's not the personal autonomy like being a sales rep too. So we'll talk more about the management side of things later on. Thanks, Eddie, for chiming in here. Guys, we're a little bit behind the schedule. We'll still be on pace and time to finish on the right time for today, but we're just taking a break a little bit later here. So it's 11:45 a.m. Everyone, let's take a 10-minute break here. Go ahead and post up your light bulbs in the first sessions. We talked about really how to get started business, how you start the Cunco business with SMRAs. And then we're going to come back and talk about how you keep that business going with PR names and PR collection with Adrian Redondo. So everyone, let's take 10. We'll hard start, be back on here by 11:55 a.m. We'll get ready to rock and roll. Talk to y'all soon.
I need someone to play.
All righty, we are coming on back here. So I'm going to dive right in just to make sure I keep us on time here for the day. Two things that I'll mention beforehand. So one thing that Jonathan talked about is really essentially, and I talked about this the same way we launched the podcast. I'm going to do next week in our TLA session, a session on guerrilla marketing. And this is just like 101. How do you like use marketing, mostly social media, to blast out something, to get the word out quick, fast, efficiently. And so one of the things we'll teach you guys in TLA is guerrilla marketing, so that you can use this really for like anything in the future. And it's exactly how you're going to launch your office or help launch your office during the summer and the winter break program as either assistant manager, or branch, or district manager. And so there's two dates coming up that you want to put down in your schedule. Okay. We call this social media D-Day. And this is a 2-part social media D-Day that we're going to have. So the first one, okay, is on November 14th, which who knows what's on November 14th? Who can tell me?
That's the end of the push.
The end of the push and the Fall Classic event. So it will be on the day of Fall Classic. What you want to do is we're going to have the whole division post up a divisional triple threat messages, and then also send out some personal messages to people. And so that's just kind of phase one, just to kind of get an explosive amount of the word out before we go into our winter break in January program. It's phase two and D-Day 2. This is the big D-Day, okay? This is when you enroll other people to help. So it's one thing to just post your own triple threat, but the whole idea is using your network as your net worth, using your network to expand your current network. I can't tell you how many people we executed this last year for December, and it resulted in a massive, we had a training inside of a hotel room from how big our training got in Metro Miami last year from the successful execution. And what this is it's enrolling others. So, can you get 10 to 20 other people to post on your behalf that triple threat? And what happens is when you do that, like a lot of times you all have the same people following you. So you post on social media, you don't get as much response because it's the same people seeing it every single time. But when you utilize your network to expand your network, you can get some other posts up here too. So phase two, and you guys will have time to do this. I'll have you guys submit at Fall Classic your list of people that you're going to reach out to. But you want to reach out to certain people and say, hey, I just got promoted in my job, or I'm in part of our leadership academy. One of the things that we're working on is a guerrilla marketing campaign for this date coming up on December 5th. I'm reaching out to a couple of our friends. I was wondering, it would mean the world to me if you could, throw up something on your social media or like a story for me to help me with my job on this day. Would you be down to help? And you just reach out to people, and some people will be like, I don't want to post on social media, but lots of other people will, we'll just go ahead and post it up. And you want to see, can I get 10 to 20 other people to make a post on my behalf? When we do this, by the way, this is guerrilla marketing 101. Think about it this way, 45 to 50 people on TLA, each getting 10 to 20 people to post. If the average post is getting 2 to 3 responses, you're talking about in a single day, just by action, 600 to 700 applications that are being created on the spot from people applying just for one successful social media D-Day and execution. So we'll talk a little bit more about this as we continue, but make sure you get these 2 dates down into your calendar. And today, I like the way that today's set up on the agenda. We started off by talking about how to start a business. We talked about how using the SMRA program to really get that off the ground and running. But the way that you keep your business running is through PRs, is through personal recruits. That is how you keep that fire burning. That is your fuel to the fire for the summertime. If SMRA program is your fire starter, your PRs are your logs in the fire. This is your fuel to the fire. This is how you keep it going. If you don't have any more logs, you run out of fuel, guess what you have to do? Go back to the fire starters to start over, because you need to relight some new logs as you burnt through everything. And you got to keep that fuel to that fire going. So, one of the things that Adrian Ardondo is going to talk to us about today is really how do you actually, like, a lot of y'all have called PRs now, but if you wonder, like, hey, where do all these names come from every single week? How do I make sure you actually have names? What happens when you don't have any names to call, right? And it's like, great, you have 5 PR callers, you have SMRAs ready to call people, but if you don't have people to call for interviews to recruit and BPRs, then you're going to have trouble doing that. So one of the biggest things that determines, I think, the success of an office or the lack thereof during the summer is their ability to generate names and PR names. So this is gonna be a 3-part message on the PR program. Adrian Ardondo, our PSM from 2020 and 2019, is gonna be leading us here today and giving us some goods on the PR program and how to create and find more names through different stages of the business. So I'll go ahead and turn things over to Adrian. You got it.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much. Honored to give this talk, and actually, probably my favorite talk to give, just because I love this part of the business as far as PR program. I'm a huge RITA guy. I love recruiting here, but like Andrew said, Jonathan and Eddie gave both of you a great talk, or everyone here a great talk on specifically how to start a business, and then how to grow it. Now I want to specifically walk you guys through how to scale your business. And essentially, this is probably the most important part to the actual business, recruiting constantly. And it's really important to know when the keys are, and when's the time to capitalize specifically on recruiting, and where you want to take advantage and capitalize in the actual business. So let me go ahead and get this portion of my screen set up here. All right. Can everyone see that okay? Give me a thumbs up. Alrighty. Beautiful. Okay, so PR program, how to scale your business. Now, before I even go into a diagram that I want to show you here specifically, I do want to go ahead and emphasize on, again, the importance on how specifically you want to focus on getting and recruiting, and continuously just continue to recruit and get the business going. And really, like a way I want to show you that is just an example of some kid that randomly joined the business not too long ago, about 3 years ago here. So just to walk you through how the importance goes, and really just the importance on how the PR program works. First came this random dude, Alex Gonzalez, back in 2017. Sold about $30,000, I believe, that's first summer on the position. But more importantly, he recruited, I think it was so specifically they went to the same school. Eddie went to a different school, and then just, I think it was either through Facebook or somehow. But then came this random guy named Eddie de las Cuevas. Does any raise your hand if you know a name, Eddie de las Cuevas? Kind of just gave a talk on how to grow the business here. But with Eddie came, and this is, Eddie's got over $400,000 in PRs and revenue, really, and specifically his PR chain. But this is just an example of a couple key PRs that he recruited that really, and just to show you guys the example of how it continues to grow, and really the importance on how to scale and continuously look for PRs here. So this is just the first layer. So you got Robert Catala, Eric Palacio, which is also a familiar face and name. You got me, Adrian Arredondo, Amy Rad, Jordan Milan, and Alejandro Ross. So these are just 6 PRs that he recruited back in the summer of 2018, as well as Eric came 2017 or 2016. But just to show you how with one person and really just recruiting one guy, what it can do to the business as it continues to flow, and how it continues to escalate within the PR chain. So showing the next thing, and this is actually pretty cool to look at. So starting off at Robert Catala. Now, Robert Catala, he had 7 PRs, one including Amy Rad, who, by the way, in 2018 sold over $100,000 in career sales. And it's currently over 200,000 or 150,000 in career sales. But he recruited 7 PRs, and he was actually number 2 that year, racing for a silver cup as being like the most, or just collectively growing and recruiting the most PRs that sold the most. So that's one example. Eric Palacio, he was recruited by Eddie through a Facebook message. And then that turned into 5 PRs, $86,000 in career sales personally. And it also revenued to a top 10 DM the following year, as Eric Palacio finished number 6 in the entire country. So next comes this guy, Adrian Arredondo. Adrian Arredondo, my first summer on the position. Yeah, that guy sucks. But he recruited 14 PRs, sold about $30,000 his first summer in 2018. And then collectively, I remember Matt Ramos in 2019, who collectively sold and recruited 5 or 6 Columbus students, which is our top school here in Miami. And that revenued into $125,000 in sales for 2018 and 2019 there. So also became PSM, and now a future, hopefully, DMC candidate. But then Amy Rad came from Robert Catala, who generated 4 PRs, who sold $38,000 in career sales collectively. But more importantly, she sold over $150,000 in career sales. So Next, Jordan Milan, 3 PRs, 28,000, and Alejandro Ross, this stud that played quarterback and had a lot on his plate. I don't know how Eddie got that one, but 6 PRs, 74,000. And this is just, I show you this specifically because I want to walk you guys through the importance of why recruiting and the recruiting mentality specifically is so important. Because, I mean, Alex Gonzalez, when he recruited Eddie de las Cuevas, I'm sure he didn't think that it would turn out to Eddie de las Cuevas. So that's just to start off my message, and specifically the importance, and really wanted to emphasize the keys and the importance of recruiting PRs, and why this is the funnel and really the main point of our business here. So now I want to walk you through when you want to capitalize specifically on how to capitalize and get and revenue and generate PR. So these are really, and you should write these down, these are the times where you want to capitalize, specifically day 2 names collection. That's the first one that I'm going to walk you through. First weekend PDI, advanced training 1, day 4 through 11 PCs, team meetings, and then what to do post fast start once they already went through that. So I'll start off here. I'm specifically walking you through the more important, really the first key point on when to get and generate and capitalize on PRs, which is day 2 names. So really day 2 name collections, I'm sure each and every single one of you know exactly what that is. That's the second day of training where we have everyone download the app, and they'll submit all their contacts specifically. And that's really what we do and what we use to call PRs. And that's really where the massive amount of PRs come. So really, really important to capitalize specifically on day 2 PRs. So just to walk you through how to do so, first thing it starts off with is really crushing the absolute, like some of you, I mean, going into a branch manager position, AM position is also important on facilitating, and others that are DMs or DMCs here. First part, it all starts with crushing the actual PR talk. Some of you are going to be running the actual training. Some of you are going to be facilitating it, but I'll walk you through how to do both here specifically. But first step is crushing that PR talk, and more specifically, how to do that is going and I'll skip over to the 80% submission. This is really where you want to be hovering over and averaging on when they send in their actual contacts. You want to be hovering over that 80% submission rate. Some representatives, some people in training are going to have a lot of contacts. Some are just not going to have a whole lot. But it all equals out. If you absolutely crush your PR talk, 80% submission is where you want to be hovering around, because it'll all average out and equal out. So second thing that I will come back to
real quick is just, so for people that don't know what that means, that percentage that Adrian's referring to is the percentage of how many contacts are submitting when you do it. So when someone does that PR app and they recommend people through the phone, it tells you the total number, but it also tells you the percentage. So to Adrian's point, what's more important is the percentage, less than the number, because some people have tons, they have 1,000 contacts, some people have 50 people on their phone. So it's like more so like, are you getting people to recommend most of their friends to the position, minus like the adults and the people that they take off? If they're recommending 50% or lower or something like that, they're holding out on you. There's a lot of people that they're just not going to they're not recommending to the job too. So keep going, Adrian. Thanks.
Absolutely. Okay. So next thing is really just having good quality kids in training. Like Jonathan was talking about, like Eddie, your good people are going to duplicate your top people. So good quality in training, that's the first point, and really just focusing in the day 2. If you're facilitating more, it's really just focusing in and making sure you facilitate and focus on your top representatives, because those are going to be the people that produce the better representatives and get you the better recruits. So next thing that I want to walk through is the facilitation portion. So for some of you, you're going to be running the actual training, and for branches specifically, you're going to have to run the training or facilitate the training while the PR talk is going on. So this was something that I did as Mr. Evans ran the actual training for us. The best way to facilitate is we use spreadsheets and Google Forms. I'm not going to go into that specifically on like the actual Google Form side, but just explaining it is just making sure you are keeping track and the right conversations as your representatives send in the actual PR talk. So way to do so is the way me and Mr. Evans did it is we specifically had them send over the screenshot of how many people they selected and the percentage. They'll send it over to Mr. Evans, and then you usually want to call or send them a voice note back to tell them to go back into the actual contacts and try to hit the next level, whatever it is If they're at 50 submitted, you want to try to get them to that 100, 150 range. If they're already past 150, you want to promote them on the fact that they can win the actual contest that's being promoted. And we usually raffle off around $50 for that. But specifically facilitating is really important because that's where you want to go ahead and generate more recruits and taking and capitalizing on the day two names collection here. So next thing that I want to walk you through is knowing how to handle objections. So there's always, or not always, but specifically every now and then there'll be that one person, I'm sure most of you can relate, that specifically just like, oh, like they feel awkward or weird sending in or giving your friends contacts. So you'll have people ask you like, hey, like, are they gonna see my name? Like, the people that I recruit, are they gonna know it's from me? It's like, yeah, no shit. But specifically like knowing how to handle the objections when you have people like go and contact you, or the worst part, maybe they say like in a breakout room with everyone in there and you're trying to get all these quality PRs, but it's really just knowing how to handle those objections. One example can be specifically if someone doesn't want to go ahead and recommend their friends, it's just, I mean, just having them contact you personally one-on-one, and just going from there and just actually generating and really just walking them through how to actually like, well, not actually facilitate, but specifically walking them through how to generate the PRs there. So next thing that I want to walk everyone through is specifically first weekend PDI. So go ahead and write down first weekend PDI. Now, the key for first weekend PDI, this is going to be the second key or second time you can capitalize on generating PRs. Now, one thing that Mila does and she loves to do, I'm going to use her as an example, is she likes to take advantage of setting PRs on Saturdays. Raise your hand if you've have or experienced setting some PRs on Saturdays here, taking advantage of that. I see Jess here. Cool. All right, so an example of how to do so, it's on their first weekend. You don't really want to do too much coaching portion, but you can take advantage of first weekend PDI and generating more PRs. And the first key to it is targeting your top reps. The way you know if they're your top rep is specifically, you know, if they're selling the most in their first weekend. The people from your top schools, those that are going out in the first two demos, they're already at $1,000, $500, $1,500 in sales. So on Saturday, when it comes around, what you want to do is have recruiting conversations on PDI. So what I like to do and what Mila taught me what to do is when you're talking to them on PDI, you specifically want to ask them like, hey, like I'm going through your PR list right now, and I know you started some of these people. Like, who's the easiest person that I can talk to, or the person that you know would absolutely crush the job if we got them in for an interview? Send me a list of those people. And that way I can take advantage and help you out with the Cancun contest. So when they do that, they'll send you a list. And really the easiest way and what you want to do from there is just send them a three-way text. A three-way text, putting them into the same conversation. Hey, this is my manager, Adrian. Well, I recommended you for a position that we have openings for. So he's actually going to give you a quick call to go over the actual information. So I'll call them, and that's the easiest way to set PRs and keep generating and duplicating your top representatives right there in your first weekend. So taking advantage of setting PRs on Saturdays, like just raise your hand for, it's like, guys, Saturday PRs, this is where you can capitalize for the week. And I know Andrew's walked you through this and given plenty of talks of why the importance or why it is so important. But taking advantage of Saturday, especially if you're going into a branch or DM office where you're not going to have as much time as you want to set PRs throughout the week. And the way you want to do that and the way you want to duplicate your top representatives is with what I just walked you through, is just having those recruiting conversations on PDI and taking advantage of sitting down with them and really just getting their friends on the team, which is going to result into more PRs when it comes in for Advanced Training 1, which is the next thing I want to go ahead and walk you through. So Advanced Training 1, go ahead and write down Advanced Training 1 here on your notes. So Advanced Training 1, can anyone walk me through what, or I'll walk you through it here, but can anyone tell me what's the most important thing in Advanced Training 1? I'll give you an example. It's an hour. Jess, I think you got it. You got to mute there.
Social hour.
Social hour. You got it. All right. So I want to walk you through. This is the third key and when you want to capitalize. So this is after training. Day 2, you already collected all their names and numbers of the people they submitted. First weekend, hopefully you had those conversations and sat down with your top representatives that are performing at a high level. And then comes advanced training 1. So the first thing with advanced training 1 is executing the social hour. So in the social hour, for those that don't know, social hour is specifically where we have them come in. We'll do it usually either in the beginning. I don't know if we switched that up, Andrew, but when I was PSM in 2019 and 2020, we did it in the beginning where ideally they come in, they check in. We'll have them fill out a form of how they did their first weekend on the position. And then we start executing social hour. So way we do it is the first portion of it, we'll send them or we'll promote it obviously with contests. We'll do $25 for 3-way text and $25 for Instagram/Snapchat. We'll put them in a raffle for who can get post out and who can send out the most 3-way text. So the first portion of it is getting their top people that they starred and really focusing in on those that they start on Friday, day 2 texts or day 2 submissions. And then what they'll do is they'll send them a quick message for the people that you want to target. And they'll just send out like 10, 15 messages to people that you want to recruit and put you on 3-way text with those people. So that's the first portion of it. And then the second portion of it is the actual Instagram and Snapchat execution, where you'll get the posters on the wall with all the paper checks for the weekly checks. Or just really any type of content that you can have them put out on either Instagram and Snapchat. And ideally, this is probably the most important and probably the easiest way to get very, very high quality representatives into actual training the next week and into interviews is through these Snapchat blasts and Instagram posts, because this is where you can really get the media and then really the word out at the highest level outside of just reaching out to their contacts. People usually have more people on Instagram and Snapchat as opposed to having them on contacts here. So 3-way text, walked you through that, Instagram and Snapchat. And specifically in advanced training 1, the most important thing to do, especially if you're facilitating and not actually running the actual training, is really just focusing on your top reps. Again, it goes back to duplicating your top people and how that's going to generate the more CPO and the more quality and culture into your office is focusing on your top representatives. They just came from their first weekend. How did they perform? You want to make sure your top 5 performers are either getting a call from you during this social hour or at least at the bare minimum voice messages or WhatsApp communications on, hey, it's like, dude, like I really like you. I think we need more people onto your team. And I really think that your friends are going to perform at a high level, just as you did your first weekend. So specifically, I would love to reach out and let's see if we can get you that $25 gift card, man. That's usually the easiest way to do it. Promote it with incentive. But that's advanced training 1. Specifically just focusing on executing social hour, 3-way text, Instagram, Snapchat, and then focusing in on your top representative. So next that I want to walk you through is day 4 through 11 PCs. Day 4 through 11 PCs. So this is after first weekend. This is their 4 through 11. Usually they start slowing down on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. So ideally you want to have a PC with them anyways. I mean, this is something that we lacked on in 2019 and 2020, and then we started slowing down on these day through 4 through 11 PCs. But this is probably the most important part of someone's fast start. So the way you tie it in to going in and recruiting and generating more PRs for your team is sitting down with them and having the exact same conversations. What I like to do is through PDI and specifically do day 4 through 11 PCs. I like to sit down with them and kind of have a conversation. Same like we do with our top representatives. Like, hey, I like you. I think you're starting off very, very well, and I want to go ahead and duplicate and make more of you into our team. Like just duplicate you. I need more studs like you onto the team. And with that, what you can do is several ways. What I like to do is just incentivize them. I remember one time I graduated from Columbus. Our top representatives for some reason always come from Columbus. We have the most recruits every summer from Columbus. But what I like to do, or what I did this past summer, is I put all our current Columbus students that we had on our team that are on their 4 through 11 PC or days 4 through 11 of their FASTR. I think it was like 3 or 4 of them. I put them on a group chat and I sent them a voice note. I was like, hey, like dude, you guys can see, I mean, we usually have 15, 20 representatives from Columbus each and every single year. Right now, we only got 4, right? So I'm putting you guys into this group chat. And I want to go ahead and see like what you guys can do. It's like if you guys recruit anyone, senior or junior from Columbus, I'll incentivize you. I'll give you guys a $50 bonus, and I'll hype you guys up on the next team meeting. And that's it. Bob. From that generated Matt Ramos. And Matt Ramos generated Spencer McWhorter and all these top representatives. And he was the I believe top 10 recruiting. He finished top 10 in team builder scholarship for that summer. So just simple conversations like that go a long way. But going back to the actual day 4 through 11 PCs, specifically replicate good reps. Make sure you are sitting down and focusing in again on your good representatives, those that are performing at the highest level. You want to go in and talk to them about their fast start, how they're liking the position so far, what they're struggling with, what they like about it, and really just tone in on that first, and then you go into actually recruiting and getting more of their friends on the team. So other things that you can do days 4 through 11, if those that are really excited, is getting promoted or promoting the actual team builder program, and really letting them know it's like, hey, dude, like you're already at $3,000 in sales. It's like if you continue going the rate you're going, it's like get some friends on your team, dude. Like I highly think that you can be a team builder. I'll have a conversation with Mr. Evans and see what we can possibly do to promote you into that. But I do want your friends on the team first. So what can we do, man? Like, who do you know right now that is probably like if we get him on the team, you know, he'd do a kick-ass job at it. But he'd probably be a little bit harder to get in. Like, send me those guys, right? And you have conversations like that. Next thing you can do is contest promotions. Like I said, with the Columbus kids, I told them I'd hype them up in team meetings, and that I'd give them like $50, $100 if they can get a top representatives into training or into an interview this next week. So little things like that, again, go a long way. And guys, like if you're a branch or a DM, like $100, as opposed, like if you have to give someone $100, like do it. Like $100 is really nothing. And that can turn into an endless PR chain that leads you to $200,000, $300,000 in CPO at the end of the summer. So contest promotions. Now I want to walk you through specifically team meetings. So team meetings are probably my favorite part to execute and really to create the culture on building and like really creating the culture of RITA and recruiting is the answer for those that don't know the acronym here. But team meetings. So some of you or most of you, I mean, let me actually get like a hand raise here. So who's here training to be a BMC, a branch manager candidate? Okay, Jess, Celestial, Hope. All right, cool. All right, who's here looking to train to be a DMC? Okay, we got Andrew Evans. Cool. All right, cool. And then who's here training to be an AM? Cool. If your hand's up, answered wrong. Branch. Even if you're gonna AM, guys, branch or train like if you're gonna be a branch. So reason I asked is because most of you, I mean, if you're a branch or DM, you're definitely gonna be running your own team meetings. And then others of you, if you're gonna be an AM, possibly facilitating your team meetings. And it's also very important to facilitate while your DM or your BM is actually running these team meetings. But team meetings is probably the easiest way to generate more PRs and create the culture, because you're talking to everyone at the same time, and you're really creating the atmosphere of building the team and really what you're looking towards and what you're going towards. And that, in my opinion, is probably the easiest part. So moving on, we're moving back here. So first thing that you can do is these Cancun workshops. Something new that we did in 2020 that was really, really effective is before our actual phone jam started, what we do is we did a Cancun contest, or Cancun workshops. So it's open invite, it's not mandatory. You can have these conversations on PDI to get people there. And it's really as simple as like, hey, Rob, do you want to go to Cancun? Yeah, you do? All right, man. Let's get you there. Go on Cancun workshop. What I want you to do is just simply work on a list of people that you think you can possibly like give me, so I can go ahead and give them a call to set them up for an interview. But just worry about that. And then in the actual Cancun workshop, you execute there. But that's simply easiest way before a team meeting, before a phone jam starts, is getting those. And really what's important is how many people you can get to these Cancun workshops. Next thing is really triple threading. Before you check in, this is something that we slowed down in 2020. We started picking it back up towards the end of the summer, is triple threat. Ideally, it's very easy to forget, especially now moving into the virtual program, that they don't physically have to check into an office. But triple threat is literally just posting on 3 things: Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, every single time they go into a phone jam. So that's probably the easiest way. I mean, again, we've probably all done it where ideally we have times where we see things 2-3 times and we don't even notice it till we see it the 4th or 5th time on Instagram. Gets me all the time with like ads, and you buy a bunch of crap from Instagram that doesn't work. Happens to me all the time. But ideally, it's like you want to continuously get your representatives to constantly post up on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, whatever the case may be. But that's really important. It's like the more times that they post it, the more times that their friends see it, the more PRs you're going to generate, and the more it's going to lead to more CPO for your office. Next thing here, contest announcements. Going back to it, team meetings. That's where you want to announce the contest to the team. It's like let it be known, instead of doing it one-on-one through PDI, the day 4 through 11 PCs, AT1 conversations. This is where you can really get it out to the entire team. And one thing that we like to do in the pilot, specifically in the summer, and this is something that I'm definitely going to continue into wherever I go into the next summer, but it's announcing contests as far as like, hey, like what you want to do in a team meeting is we literally announce the most ridiculous contest that grabs everyone's attention and gets them excited about building and growing the team. And what we do is, for example, we'll have a slide in the team meeting, and what we'll do is we'll share our top schools. So we'll put all of our top schools into the actual program, or into the slide rather, and we'll put Columbus, our top private schools, where we want our representatives from, and we'll tell them, it's like, hey, like, Jess, if you can get me someone from our top school, like, I'll give you $100. As a matter of fact, if they come out and they have a 10K fast start, I'll give you $1,000 bonus. It's like, I mean, guys, raise your hand if you think you'd be excited, like, or your representatives would be excited about $1,000 bonus. Like, I mean, by the way, like, it barely happens. I think it's happened once in like 3 summers. But it's that one time that it does happen. Guys, $1,000, if you're a BM or a DM, it's absolutely worth it. You'll make more off of that if they give you and bring you a 10K fast starter. And more importantly, now you can focus on that 10K fast starter, duplicate him, and make more fast starters. So 10K. So that's a really cool announcement that I know we pretty much promoted the entire summer. And one cool way you can do it is like, hey, like if you're in a team meeting, go to the bank, take out $1,000 if you have it, take it out in cash, and literally just fling it into the camera.
All in ones.
Yeah, I know Alex Bates did that with $20 bills, and every single time he had a representative hit 10K, he'd pretty much invite them over to the office, have them hold that grand in 20s in their hands. It's like, hey man, you want that? Go bring me another 10K fast start. So it's just a cool idea there. But next thing that I want to go into is specifically creating the culture. Now, this is something we did very, very well in the pilot office, in my opinion, is we found studs that are looking, and they were actively looking to create and build the team. And the way you want to do that is specifically getting your team really encountered in growing to what you want your goal to be. I know in our office, in the pilot office, we would always run our team meetings with Jonathan Castell, and our goal was, hey, breaking a record for the summer. Not only, breaking 2 records. It was 2 records one summer, 2020. So it was breaking the all-time branch record and breaking the all-time pilot record for a summer. So getting your team into that and really surrounded around that is what's going to get them excited to want to go out and get their friends on the team, or want to go out and send, like, for example, Justice Cabo, she's currently on this call. Like, we got her into a Cancun workshop, and I know she was one that was super excited to just be on the team, be a part of the team, and really just, she wanted to grow it. So what she did, like after a team meeting, she hit up Julia or Nicole for like the Instagram approach that we have. And she went out, I think she sent out like 100, 200 Justice messages on Instagram. Yeah. So,
yeah, like 200.
Yeah, she sent out like 200 messages on Instagram. From that, by the way, she got like 15 numbers for us, or like 20 numbers, something crazy like that the next day. And then that's when we called, and we pretty much set up like 90% of the people that she gave us, because it was that easy, right? So it's just ideas like that, getting your team surrounded within the culture of wanting to grow and build and hit the goals that you're looking to hit, and really just getting them into it. So team meetings. And then next thing that I want to walk you guys through is post fast start. So what to do after they've gone through the entire well, day 1, day 2, first weekend, they're faster, it's over. What to do now? And it's really just being intentional, continuing to go with the actual the programs and what we just went through. It's all the same stuff, but being very intentional. So individual contests, again, contests. I'm sure you've heard that before. It's like having the one-on-one conversations, putting your top representatives that know each other into group chats, and actively having them recruit or be excited to recruit more people and their friends onto the team. Next thing is creating a culture of RITA, and that could be done, like I said, in team meetings. But it also can be done like continuously. That's post fast start. The next team meeting that they go to, are they continuously excited to get their friends on the team? Are they continuously looking? I know for me, my first summer on the position in 2018, I know Andrew did a hell of a job at this in team meetings, because wherever I went, whether if it was at a party, if I was going to see a friend that brought a friend that I had no idea who he was and I was meeting him for the first time, whether if I was just going to dinner with like right, just anywhere, I was always actively looking and having the conversations to recruit, just because I was personally excited. Like I wanted to be the team builder. I wanted to help build a team to that $1 million summer. So that's just one example of what it can do if you just continuously promote and create the culture of RITA, and recruiting is always the answer here. So moving forward, then let me actually fix this. I'm losing my slide. There we go. Can you guys see that? Thumbs up. Cool. All right. Next thing is promoting the team builder position. Like I said, it's like I was excited to be a team builder. And really, like your representatives, like they're if they perform well, they're itching. Like if you're promoting it the right way in your team meetings, like they should be itching to get that team builder promotion, itching to get the next level, and really just to get recognized into team meetings and being promoted to a team builder position. So promoting the team builder at a high level and making sure like you are always having conversations about that with your top representatives. I remember that's the conversation. So my PR was Matt Ramos. Like I mentioned before, what it created, he was the top 10 team like he was gunning for the team builder scholarship. He finished top 10 in 2019. And I would always have conversations because he was personally my friend from high school at the time. And really like what I did was just sat him down like, hey dude, like my first summer, 2018, like I finished number 5 in the entire region in team builder. Like, can you beat that? Like creating competition. And ideally just getting me excited. It's like, hey, Mr. Evans is really looking at like your performance, and we've had conversations and he likes you, man. It's like he wants to get more of your friends on the team. So I mean, dude, like who can you hit up right now? Or who can you send me to hit up to get in for an interview? And that's simple. And that's exactly how we got our top representatives for the entire summer with Spencer McCorder, and what that led to Gabe Velasquez. Remember Gabe? Andrew? All right. So next thing I want to walk everyone through is really the last thing is just recognizing those that are building the team. So same thing with promotions, but more towards in your team meetings is like, are you calling out the people in your team meetings and continuously creating the culture and recognize those that are have people in training? In advanced training 1, are you recognizing those that have people already set up for interviews? And just continuously build the excitement and emphasize the importance and tie your team into your goals on continuously recruiting and just recognizing them in team meetings and specifically just getting them hyped up. Like people love recognition. Are you doing in team meetings? Are you handing out your $1,000 or $100 bonus in team meetings and announcing it, showing the Cash App up on the screen? But those are just some ideas there specifically. So just to conclude, guys, I mean, specifically the keys and the importance, the keys to really how to capitalize on recruiting and the PR program are these 7 or 6 specific events. It's like, what are you doing in day 2 names collection, first weekend PDI, advanced training 1, day 4 through 11 PCs, team meetings, and post fast start, what to do and what to capitalize there. So that'll conclude there. I hope you guys got some good nuggets, and back to you, Andrew.
All right, let's give some snaps and some claps. Daps.
Gangster daps. Love the gangster daps.
G-daps. Hey, Adrian, put that slide back up one more time, just that last slide that you had on there. So if I can, just one thing that I want you guys to take away from Adrian's message today, and thanks, Adrian, for delivering. give us the goods. Look, there are always ways to get more names on their team. I just even when you have no names, there are always names. There are always people to call. When there's no one to call, there's things called lost text. There's PR names that have been unreached by conveyor. There's even when you get your territory, PRs that were left over from last summer that were never called. In fact, one of our top reps in TLA is because of those lists. Taylor was actually on someone's PR list that from the previous manager in Sarasota that was running the office there at the time. She was a list from the previous summer that never got called. So Taylor, who sold almost 50 grand this summer, or might have sold, I don't know if he did hit 50, I think, or pretty damn close to it. Top performer in the division this past summer. And she is only here or she could have been here the previous summer, but that manager never called that person on that list. And Alex called her at the beginning of the summer. And I think Taylor really helped her build the Sarasota office this summer too. So, there's always different ways. You have day 2 name collection, you have first weekend PBI. And in fact, really every chance that you have representatives in front of you, people in front of you, a phone call, you always want to be making sure that the outcomes are you're impacting sales or you're impacting recruiting. And every time that you get people in front of you, it's an opportunity to recognize people who are recruiting, bring more attention to recruiting, bring more people on the team, or generate more names of people that they could recommend to the team. So thanks, Adrian, for bringing the goods. All right, everyone, do me a quick favor here. And I want you guys to do a little quick stretch break. We're going to dive right into Money Honey, and then we'll take another break. So shake out the wrist, do whatever, do some arching here. You can do the sitting down stretches. You can stand up if you want. Yeah, shake it out, do whatever you need to do. All right, and time-wise, I'm going to dive right back in. So we just have 20 minutes of goods today on our second module, Money Honey. I think this needs no introduction. This is what some people's favorite part of TLA so far, and I love the topics that we're going to be going over here today. So I'll dive in. Rachel, Money Honey Rachel, is going to be taking us and leading us here through today as we talk about some buckets, as well as she's explaining them now when I was, a freshman and sophomore in school and college. I graduated with close to 100 grand saved when I graduated from college, but I probably would have had a lot more if I would have done a better job at some of these things to get started. And it's all about knowing how to flow. And I think the first step is, if you're hearing this, like, you can start to set up these accounts. So you already have step 1 with holdings count. You can set up an online savings account, a high yield savings account, like she mentioned, for your medium-term savings. Long-term savings, we're going to talk about here in a little bit. I think the 4th module is going to be on investing and stocks and things like that too. So you can invest that into an actual market bucket. And then the 4th thing is a retirement account invested into the stock market or into a Roth IRA. So you can start to set up these accounts. But first thing that you need is you need separate accounts, and you have that withholdings account, and then you need an actual medium-term savings account. The other thing that I'll mention is it's good to master this in our business, because you guys don't get regular paychecks. I'll just tell you this. The reality is that it is easier to manage your money when you have the exact same amount of money coming in every single week. It just is. When you get paid $1,000 every single week, it's very, very easy to just automatically boop, 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 and just kind of set it. Okay, I take this much every week. I save it. I take this much away. I budget it. Great. Our income as managers and sales reps is very irregular. Some weeks you're like, all right, my paycheck was $2 grand this week. This week it was negative $45. Next week it's $850. It jumps all over the place lots of times, especially even as a branch. So you really want to get in the habit of, like, hey, when you take that money, knowing where you fill out the buckets, and once that bucket's filled, it goes into the other bucket. Isa, just yesterday closed almost a 10 grand order. If she makes 40%, that's $4 grand in one commission statement. She might have gone 2 or 3 weeks without even having a lot of sales before that. So when she gets that order in, boom, that money comes into the account. It's instantly cool. How much do I have in withholdings? Blank. So a portion of that goes there. Boom, my emergency fund, if it gets filled up with $1,000, the $2,000 goes into the other investment funds. And you can even take that one paycheck and disperse it. Other paychecks, you might be going, backwards or doing something else too. So the other thing that I wanted to mention is that this gets a little bit more complicated and a little bit different once you become a business owner. So when you run a branch office for the summertime, this is for personal finance. Your buckets change a little bit on terms of how you structure them and where the money flows into. So I sent a podcast into the group chat. For those of you guys that I think for any of my NLG members, this would be a good audio for you to listen to, especially if you've already ran an office in the past. And if anyone wants to skip ahead and get a little bit more financially savvy, Robert Gonzalez is one of his positions is with Rising Stock, which is the company that almost all of our branch district managers use to help us manage our finances and track expenses during the summertime. We'll tell you more about that later on, but I definitely recommend checking out that podcast if you haven't done so already. So take a quick second and post your biggest light bulbs into the chat if you haven't done so already. I love seeing some of these, but also some of them are the same people every time. So I want to hear from everybody today. So make sure everyone's posting light bulbs, at least for some of these messages, unless you didn't have any. And as we're wrapping things up, guys, we're going to do this. I'm going to make a shorter break just to keep us on time here and make sure that we finish at a respectable time, if that's cool with everyone. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. We'll get restarted right back at 1:05. So take 5 minutes, use the restroom, do whatever you need to do, and we'll reconvene here in just a second. And we are back. Everyone, take a quick second, turn your cameras back on, and we're going to dive into our last 2 messages here for the day. So I'm going to dive in. I'll give you guys a little bit shorter version of my message. I'm excited to get a chance to talk to you all. This is something that I always enjoyed, even before I became a division manager, teaching and educating people on, and that is PDI and Coaching 101. Okay, learning how to coach and influence others through PDI is one of the most valuable skills that you can develop as a manager. And by the way, if you want to, the number one way, before I even talk about the objectives of PDI, how we're going to go about doing it, who knows the number one thing that you can do to increase your ability to coach other salespeople? NLG, you guys know this. Sell. Okay. The more that you sell, the better coach that you will be. Who's going to be a better coach? The rep the manager that's at 10K in career sales and has studied and watched a bunch of PDI videos, or the manager that is at 60 or 70K in career sales and doesn't really know crap about how to coach a representative? Who's going to coach the representative better? The 60K sales rep every single time. You know, I would trust the person that's higher in career sales that doesn't really know a lot about the special techniques of the verbiage or how to go about doing it, because they just know about selling and they can educate people. And it's helpful when you can relate to others. You know, I think if you took anything away from the how to win friends and influence people, one thing that I always learned is like, hey, this goes back to Eddie's comment about like, hey, attractive people are more successful. You know, and that doesn't necessarily mean by like physically attractive. It's like, what does attractive mean? It means attractive, like as in people are attracted to you. That could be attracted to your energy, which we talked about last prep, right? Like being energy rich, that means being attractive. And in terms of energy, that could be attractive in terms of there's some sort of qualities or attributes about you that are attractive in that area, but you're bringing people towards you. And so when you're more relatable, it's more attractive to people. When you can, like, one thing I learned at a young age was like, I wanted to be involved and know a little bit about anything. Like I didn't watch a lot of sports growing up, but I made sure that I started learning more about certain sports that I never played because it's common topics of conversations and rapport building. I wanted to learn about sports that I didn't know. I wanted to learn about travel destinations because when I meet people from different cities and different locations, like it's good when I already can talk to about or I know where they're from, and there's an easy rapport building process there. It's the same thing when you're coaching sales reps. You're more relatable when you've sold more and you've gone through more experiences, because you're not just like when they come up with you a scenario, you've probably had that scenario happen before. And it's like, hey, dude, I feel you. I've had the good stuff, the bad stuff. Yeah, when that happened to me the first time, blank, versus I've never really experienced that. I'm going to try to coach you, but I don't really know what to do because that's never happened to me before. You know, and honestly, if you're only at 10K, there's only so many scenarios. So that's the first tip. But let's dive into the mechanics, okay, about PDI and our opportunity to influence our representatives too. So if you're taking some notes, let's make sure we're engaged for this last hour. And I'm going to give you guys the good here. Look, PDI stands for, by the way, actually, who knows what that stands for? Yeah, someone shout it out.
Pick me.
Personal daily influence.
Personal daily
Interaction.
influence. Personal daily influence or personal daily interaction. I like changing it to personal daily influence. It also stands for PDI is pretty damn important. Okay. Personal daily influence. And PDI really, especially in this virtual climate, you know, when we used to be in the office, you had more of an opportunity to influence people when they were in front of you. You saw representatives more in the office. It's easier to build a relationship, the connection with people. But now it's actually it's much more easy for a rep to literally go through training, come to all the meetings, and never really have a one-on-one connection or relationship with anybody in the office or on the team outside of the brief conversation of the manager that interviewed them for the position. PDI is our opportunity to impact reps, is opportunity to build relationships, and especially in the virtual climate and environment, PDI is more important than it's ever been before. And this is our opportunity to, on a one-on-one level and basis, to be able to influence people. Back in the day, when I was a branch manager, what my schedule consisted of, my first or second summer, when I would get to the office at 8 a.m., I'd kick off a Champions Club. And the first 2 hours of every day, every single day, you can ask Eddie Las Cuevas what I did every single morning when he would come into that office, is from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. I called every single person in our office on our team. I spoke to every person on our team every single day before 10 a.m. just to kickstart the day. And I made sure that I was getting personal daily influence, because, by the way, if you're not talking to them, you're not influencing them. If all they hear from you is on Wednesdays and Sundays, you're not really influencing them. You don't have a relationship with that person. And PDI is not personal daily text messages. It is personal daily influence. That means, and look, text messages are great. It's a good backup and a utilization to get good at WhatsApp communications and sending out mass messages, and when you need to get things done or set up a meeting quickly. But text messages are not a good way to build a relationship with people. Text messages are not a way to influence, the mentality of a representative. They're not a good way to impact and actually create action, is through text messages. So, you can't rely, it's a good backup, but PDI is the opportunity to actually impact and influence, our people on a daily basis too, on a one-on-one basis. And, one thing that I always hear from assistant managers when they're new, I love hearing this, is that, oh, Andrew, like these reps suck. They just won't call in from their demos. Or, I texted all my team to confirm them for the meeting, but, half of them didn't respond, or, or I called them, but nobody answered. And it's like, well, if people don't answer your calls, you got to ask yourself, why is that the case? Right. And usually, by the way, your reps don't answer your phone calls because they don't get value from your phone calls. The best thing I love, I've done this multiple times. If anyone's been my staff, when someone says that, I'll have they never answer my calls. I'm like, all right, blank, you go call them. Boom, rep answers right away. And it's like, okay, cool. So it's not that the rep's just not on their phones. It's just not answering your calls, because when they talk to you, there's no value. It doesn't seem like you're interested in building a relationship with them. They just get that same annoying call every single Tuesday, and they're like, hey, are you going to be in the team meeting on Wednesday? Sick. Great. Just make sure you come prepared. We'll see you there. They know what's coming. They know they're going to call me and ask me if I'm going to be at the meeting tomorrow. So make sure that you're providing value and looking to build a relationship on your actual calls. And, I'm going to give you guys some basics. I'm also going to walk you through exactly what are the PDI structures. And the first thing I think that's important for you guys to know is, what do we teach in training? This is going back to Eddie and Jonathan's point at the beginning of today, is, everyone needs to rewatch a training seminar before you go out into the and run an office this summer. I don't care if you're a branch manager, you're not even going to be running training, but you will be facilitating training. As assistant manager, you're not running training, but you need to know what is being promoted in training so that your lingo and your manager's lingo is consistent. Reps have to hear consistency from the interview to the training to their first weekend PDI to their first team meeting. If they hear one thing in the interview, something else from the person that trained them, then they talk to an assistant manager or the branch manager and they hear something else on PDI, then they get into advanced training one and it's kind of something else. You're not speaking the same lingo and there's a lack of consistency. Elegance and simplicity, and making sure you're on the same page. So number one, this is what is promoted, and you guys should all know this because you all have gone through training and have been a sales rep. This is our communication structure that we teach almost every rep, no matter what training they're in across the division. And that is that there's 3 times when they call into the office. They call into the office from the appointment check-in, which is at the homemaker set. And that is, by the way, like something you have to say 5,000 times in your training, because literally, no matter how many times you say it, people will call you at the end of the demo and be like, oh, when am I supposed to call in? It's like, no, you can call us at the homemaker when we can actually still help you. They clock in from the appointment when they're with the customers. That is to help them close sales and deals. We're not trying to coach them while they're sitting on the phone with the customer and client. We don't want to ask them how it went, how it's going, give them a bunch of tips. That's not the objective. We just want to check in and just help them close deals. And, afterwards, we'll save it for after they're done with the customer, and usually encourage or remind them to get a lot of recommendations. Second thing is the actual coaching calls. This is a opportunity and a chance to dive in with your people and really give them some coaching after the appointment to help shape and affect their mentality. I had a good call with Alex Arias the other day, who, is doing really well as a district manager, again, pacing for President's Banquet. And she's in school. She's in the same spot you all are in. She's got full-time classes, 15 credit hours at NYU, which, and she's an English major. It's a lot of writing. It's not like really an easy course load for your senior year at a, prestigious university. But she's still finding a way, by the way, to get time and carve out time for reps. And, Alex doesn't have a ton of people on her team, but there's always consistently performers. She's got one of the highest productivities right now in the region for actual sales reps. And I asked her, like, hey, what's some of those keys of what's creating that for you? She's like, honestly, every weekend, even if I only launch 4 or 5 people, I make sure I have almost an hour-long phone call with every single one of them, during at one point in the weekend. And I don't think that's always, by the way, realistic of like, hey, if you got a ton of people on your team, you're probably not going to be able to have an hour-long phone call with everyone. But the point is that she's really intentional about building relationships with her people, about really talking to them, and really coaching them. And because of that, she has one of the highest retentions and one of the highest productivities of anybody else. It's kind of like, it's pretty simple, but a lot of times managers are like, I can't understand why our reps aren't selling or why we're not getting the training pop. And it's like, well, like, how long are we actually spending coaching our people and actually speaking to them and talking to them? So you have the AM appointment check-in, coaching calls, and then morning check-in, which some offices facilitate that via text. Sometimes they're calling the office. Sometimes it's the manager calling them. But those are the 3 times where we have communication with representatives. And this is what we teach representatives. And I want to give you guys a basic outline for structure that you can use for just about every single PDI call that you have. Almost every call, you want to be focused on what are the outcomes of that call that I want to have. And there's basically 4 objectives. Anytime that you're talking on the phone, I'm going to make it really simple. It's called SEED, C-E-E-D, C-E-E-D, SEED. Okay, it's the easy acronym for you guys to remember on what you do on a PDI phone call. When a representative calls in, this is what you do almost every call. The first letter is C, is to connect. The first thing that you want to do is connect with people. Hey, how are you doing? Right? But by the way, a lot of times when you ask that question, here's a little quick tip is like, I would ask them again, like the amount of times you'll ask a sales rep, go, hey, how are you doing? And they'll go, oh, I'm doing good. I have 3 demos for tomorrow. I have this much so far in sales, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, like, how are you doing? Not like how's Cutco going? Like, how are you doing in general? Like, how's life, family? Like, just actually check in and genuinely be curious about like, hey, how are you? Is everything all right? How are you doing in general? What's going on in life? What's new? Talking to you, how was your week last week? Just like, I don't give a shit about your sales right now. Just how are you? And being able to connect. By the way, doing that like sometimes throws people off guard in a good way, because a lot of times they're just used to like, oh, how many demos do you have for today and tomorrow? And if every single time that you have a conversation with them, it's the exact same thing, then you're going to struggle with that a little bit too. So first thing is to connect with reps. Second thing we want to make sure that we're doing is to excite them. Whatever that means is there's some sort of promotion, right? Hey, glad, cool, awesome, you're doing well. Well, hey man, Celestial, we are fired up from this weekend of our performance. The Tampa team right now is absolutely cranking it. I actually just got off the phone with a couple people this morning. Jeremy just got his first homemaker sale this morning. Blank already got their first homemaker sale. So-and-so's already at $2,000. And we're fired up and juiced up right now because we're right away from the SC1 push. It's actually on 1 week out. And I'm really, really excited to have you on the team. Like, whatever it is, you want to get them excited about something. I'm getting them excited about the team meeting. I'm getting excited about coming to the Cancun workshop to get PRs. I'm getting them excited about, going for a big fast start. I'm getting them excited about like something. I want to transfer some sort of enthusiasm, aka sell the reps and get them excited on whatever it is that we are promoting. The third thing is events. Okay. And there's always pretty much an event. So you're like, the key to management and retention of sales reps is making sure that they show up to events. It's called event to event management. When someone starts the job, if they don't show up to advanced training 1, there's an 80% chance they're going to quit before the end of their fast start. Seriously. If they missed the first training after the original training, like they're probably not going to continue with the job. If you get them to AT1, there's a high likelihood that they're going to be in the team meeting on Wednesday. Very low chance of them not being there if they were in advanced training 1. If they're at their team meeting on Wednesday, there's a pretty damn good shot they're going to just finish off their fast start and finish off like normal. If they miss that first team meeting, I mean, there's, I'd say again, 80% of chance they're not even going to finish the job before their fast start's over if they miss their very first team meeting on the job. That first Sunday paycheck meeting, getting them there. Like if you can get them to every event in their fast start and make sure that they're present in attendance, you're setting up a representative that has good structure and good habits to form some long-term success and sustainability. The event might be the next meeting in the office. The event might be, hey, getting them to the Champions Club workshop or the Cancun workshop. It might be, hey, we have an SLDM with your division manager coming up this upcoming Tuesday. It might be, hey, we have an SE1, SE2, our fall classic conference. There's always an event or something else that's coming, and you always want to be promoting the next event. And the last thing that you want to do is impact demos, right? So connect, excite, events, demos. And when you talk about, whenever you have a conversation with a representative about demos, you want to live, eat, breathe, sleep, and live inside the window that is 3 days. If I'm talking to a rep on Monday, I'm like, hey, talk to me about your demos for the next 2 to 3 days. Between Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, how many demos do you have lined up? I don't care about anything beyond 3 days. I want to know how many demos they have for today, how many do they have lined up for tomorrow, and how many do they have for the next day. And we can utilize things and platforms for managers like things like Q to actually see and track the results and goals, So, hey, Taylor, I see, you have, 4 demos, you have 2 demos for the day, which is what your goal is. But tomorrow your goal is 4 demos and you only have 1 booked up so far. So, what's the game plan between like the rest of the day? When's your phone time scheduled for the day to make sure that you're filling up your schedule for Tuesday and Wednesday, right? And making sure that there's some sort of action coming out of it. By the way, the last thing I want to share with you guys is what is the definition of a good PDI call, right? I oftentimes hear representatives finish a PDI call and they're like, wow, that went really well. That was a really great PDI call. I'm like, great, what happened? And then they're like, well, they're really excited now. I'm like, okay, good. And like, what happened? And they're like, well, like, they're going to come to the team meeting. Okay, great. But like, what happened? Like, what did you get done? Like what was accomplished in that phone call, right? And what should be accomplished is like there's actually action. Like a good PDI call means that you're impacting sales or you're impacting recruiting. Means action was taken based off of that phone call that you had with that person. And whether that action was, well, yes, this person is now going to show up to the team meeting with a lot more names and phone numbers. I got their commitment. They're going to show up on time. And there's results coming out of that. Hey, that person, is hopping on the phones right now to book up some immediate demos. And I'm creating some results that way. Hey, that person, is going to come into our Thursday night phone jam later tonight now at 7:00 to book up more demos for their Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Creating action and results out of your phone conversations. If there's not action and results being created, then it's not really that great of a phone call. You just talk to the rep and got them excited, and that's great. But here's the other reality is that the way we impact reps is by helping them succeed. The way that reps succeed more is when they have more appointments. It's just a fact. The representatives that have more appointments will sell more and they will earn more. So it's great to get people excited, and it's also great to connect with them. But, if again, are you providing value on your phone calls? Are they better off than that phone call than they were when they had it, right? Are they going to make more money and sell more and perform better and do better at the job because of that phone call that they had with you? And chances are, if they're not booking up extra demos because you spoke to them, then that's probably not the case. So this is a quick thing, and hopefully there's a light bulb here for some of you guys that haven't done a lot of PDI. Just, hey, connect, excite, events, talking about your demos. Always lead with some action. It's connecting with them, what's happened, reflecting the past week, whatever it might be. So there's 4 different types of PDI. Okay. 4 different types of PDI you want to write down. First one is first weekend PDI. We have Tuesday PDI, Friday benchmark PDI, and then just ongoing. First weekend PDI is, and I'll leave this slide up here for a quick second. First weekend PDI is, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's the PDI that you do when someone's on the first weekend on the job. They just finished training on the actual job. And we've actually already talked about this in some of our weekly TLA preps about how to coach someone in the first weekend. Tuesday and Friday, well, I'll get to those in a second. So first weekend PDI happens every single weekend. Every single time we launch a training class, we have to take their PDI from the first weekend. Most impactful and most important PDI session that happens is first weekend PDI. Because, by the way, guys, if you don't do good first weekend PDI, Tuesday PDI doesn't exist because they don't make it to Tuesday because they've already quit unless you're doing a good job of influencing and coaching your people throughout their first couple of demos and first couple of days on the job. And the last one is what we do after the rep. So here's the deal. Tuesday and Friday, these are functions. What I mean by that is like Tuesday PDI and Friday PDI should be set in stone times, just like when you run an interview or you run a team meeting. They are functions that happen in the office. Every Tuesday, we call through the whole team and we want to touch base with the whole team. Every Friday morning before noon, we want to touch base with the entire team. First weekend kind of isn't a function. It just happens throughout the weekend, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, like you're just talking to the reps of the team. And ongoing or outgoing PDI is not a function either. Just as kind of like, hey, you're going to continue to build relationships, follow the structure, and work with representatives that are actually on your team. So let me give you guys some keys. And what I want to do here is I want to give you all the objectives of these phone calls, because here's the important thing. If you understand the objectives as a manager, you don't need, like, we have scripts for all this stuff. We have the words that you can say, right? But what's a lot more important, like, is understanding objectives. Because I know if a manager understands the objectives of what is trying to be accomplished in that phone call, I don't really care what words they say. I care like, hey, are they accomplishing those objectives? And when a manager knows the objectives, it means you don't have to read a script and really kind of be a forged personality that's not really you. You can communicate the way that you communicate. And everybody communicates a little bit differently. But are you getting the right objectives done when you're having that phone call? And reps will connect with you more when you're not like reading a script to them and you're actually just like connecting and talking to them, and you're focused on the objectives that you're going to have on the call. It makes you more relatable, in the actual process. So first objective is first weekend PDI, or first weekend PDI is the first one we'll talk about objectives wise. Okay. And I've already given you guys these before on a weekly TLA prep. So I'd be curious, what are the objectives of first weekend PDI? Let's have some people shout them out. Actually, take a quick second. I want everyone to post in the chat box, not in the TLA chat. Post in the chat box. What do you think are the first, give me one or two objectives of first weekend coaching. If I was going to make a list, there's probably like 3 or 4 of them, but you can post all 3 or 4, or you can just post 1 or 2. What are some of the objectives that you want to do and on first weekend PDI? Cool. We got build confidence, make a personal connection, driving 18-1 attendance, reassure the rep, confidence and recommendations. Don't have names and numbers, build rapport, confidence, get to 18-1, first promo, 100 numbers. A rep can replicate a drop down, encouragement, confidence, drive to events. Okay, cool. I like where you guys' heads at. So these are the 4 keys in my mind. And I would, if someone maybe in NLG could take a photo of these slides and send it in, or I can send it afterwards. First weekend coaching. The first objective, look, new managers and new reps are the worst, or new assistants and new branches are the worst of this. It's very easy. I know if you love teaching, okay, it's easy to just want to teach people a bunch of stuff, but there is an element of over teaching. And look, these reps just went through 14 hours of training. They've already been taught a lot. They don't need to be taught anything else. There's nothing extra that they need to be taught after going through 14 hours of training and doing 1 or 2 appointments. They just need to be reassured, reaffirmed, retrained, and brought right back to the same thing that was taught in training and right back to the basics. And the reality is that they're following the basics, and if they're seeing MAC customers, the representatives are going to have results. So the objective, there's no tips that you give on first weekend coaching ever. There's no tips that you need to give. Okay. All you are doing is, number 1, you want to give confidence to them, right? And that might mean giving them confidence and positive momentum. Sometimes your top performers, right? You guys have heard this before, is challenge the champions, encourage the discouraged. And sometimes I think managers on PDI, like, honestly, reps need to hear, like, sometimes it's just like, hey, like, they got that first no sale on that first demo. It's like, hey, dude, like I know that sucks, right? I know that's probably not, what you were looking to get done on that appointment. And hey, dude, no big deal. Like, honestly, it happens sometimes. Actually, my first demo, I didn't sell on it either. Or, blank, so top rep on the team, and their first demo out of training was a no sale as well too. So it's not the fun part about the job, but sometimes we get some of those. don't even worry about it. Don't sweat it, man. We're going to get you going on the next one. And it's just about giving confidence too. Like a lot of times representatives that don't hear that, if they go 2 or 3 demos, and all managers know this sometimes, the reps that don't call in, or you don't take that first 2 or 3 phone calls, the first time a rep has a no sale, they're wondering, I don't know about this. Does everyone actually buy this? I'm not sure if I'm going to, that wasn't really what I was hoping for. Second one, they're like, ooh, damn, like 2 no sales in a row. Like, yeah, I don't know if maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I'm not good at this. Third one, they're already halfway on the way out the door. If they have another third no sale, they're already like, yeah, I'm not good at this. I can't do this very well. And it's very quickly that our representative mentality gets shaped and molded in a different direction. So it's our job to encourage the discouraged. And by the way, challenge the champions. The way that you get people that go out and perform at a high level is you keep them in Ben Skimper, who's my coach, he spoke to one of us at SC2. Ben Skimper, when he started selling Cutco, he sold 50 grand in Cutco his first 3 weeks in the job, or first 3 to 4 weeks in the job. 50 grand in a month, his first month on the job. Started the job and sold 50 G's in a month. That's quite a bit, and part of the reason that he did that, I remember they said like his manager at the time literally told the rest of his staff, they said, Ben is not allowed to talk to anybody else on the team. Okay. No one is allowed to talk to Ben in the team meetings. And the reason that they did that, okay, is because they wanted to keep him in a bubble. Because if they talked to other reps in the team, Ben was like, oh, wow. So it's not normal to go out and do what I'm doing now. The reason he had a lot of success is because he thought that was a standard. I remember when Julia Ortiz had sold 10 grand her first day on the job. I remember she called in and Eddie, and she came into advanced training thinking that she had done bad. She literally thought she was doing poorly at the position. She's like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know. And then she realized like, oh, wow, I'm kind of doing pretty well. But part of that is because the reason that she had such high standards and was like, oh, I'm supposed to sell a lot. Everyone's supposed to buy this stuff. I should be selling even more than I'm currently selling. It raises their expectations. And we know the most important thing is that your expectations create your reality. Representatives that think and believe they will go out and sell, go out and sell. The representatives that don't think that they're going to sell them, they don't sell. And it doesn't matter who or what type or how, wealthy the customers are that they are seeing. It literally, no matter what, I don't care if they're seeing, people that are they shouldn't even be seeing them. They're not MAC customers. People that are really confident, think they're going to sell, they sell to those customers too. And it doesn't matter when we have reps that come from literally their appointments or all their friends and family are like live in mansions. And somehow they'll go out and do those appointments if they're convinced that they're not going to sell. And somehow none of their customers can afford it. There's no way people can spend this much money, even though they're seeing baller customers, they don't even realize it because they've convinced themselves. So our goal is to affect and shape their mentality on first weekend PDI, get them to the next event, advanced training, manage that mentality, get them thinking bigger, and then make sure that they're just following the basic fundamentals. Hey, are you following the manual? Are you seeing the target market? Are you having fun on your appointments, with your customers? And are you calling the office at the right point in time? That's first weekend coaching. Tuesday PDI objectives. I'm going to speed through these a little bit more just for time wise. We're going to be able to dive into these a little bit more on some weekly calls. Tuesday PDI objectives. Okay. It is not, this is my pet peeve is when people say confirm them for the team meeting. We're not confirming anyone for the team meeting. Now we might say that at managers because we just want to have a list of like confirmations, but like we're not trying to call the reps and say, hey, will you be at the team meeting? That's the worst thing that you can do as a manager. It's like, what do you mean, will you be at the team meeting? That's like, hey, are you coming into work today? It's like, well, you scheduled me for the shift, didn't you? Like, I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to. Like, you don't want to. So you're not trying to confirm them. You're trying to make sure that they show up to the meeting the right way to have a productive meeting. Because by the way, this is, again, looking out for rep success. We all know if a representative comes to the team meeting and they don't have names and numbers prepared, they're going to sit on that little Zoom call for hours and do basically nothing. They're going to actually lose money. Like, it's going to be a waste of time. They will sit in that call. They're going to book up 3 or 4 demos. They're like, wow, I just wasted 3 or 4 hours. I didn't make any money doing that. So we want to make sure that their first team meeting that they're experiencing is valuable to them, that they know, oh, wow, I see why it's important to come to these. I see the value of phone gym. And if they have names and numbers, they're more prepared. They're going to have more success coming out of it. And it's our job as managers to help equip people with that. So we want to connect with reps. We want to debrief the sales week because it's on Tuesday. So the sales week just finished on Monday. We can talk to them. Hey, I see you sold this much last week. How do you feel about that? And by the way, just coach reps on what they want to do. It's servant leadership 101. You don't coach people to do what you want to do. You coach them to do what they want to do. And a lot of times it's just simple. Hey, Chloe, last week you sold $1,000. Nice work. How do you feel about that? Chloe might go, oh yeah, that's great. Like that was awesome. I'm so excited that I did that. That was amazing. It's like, all right, great. Like, hey, like, can we duplicate that again this week? I know you're excited about your results last week. Can we make sure that you opened a couple tips to make sure that you're able to get that done again on a second week in a row? And by the way, this week, now you're at this plank percentage commission. So you're going to make even more when you sell that same $1,000, right? Or Chloe might go, yeah, I don't know. I'm not really that fired up about it. Like I was shooting for $3,000, but I only sold $1,000. Cool. So, and I'm just trying to get an idea of like, where's she at, or do they want to increase? Do they want to maintain? Was that actually too much for them? And I'm just like, great, I'll give them some feedback towards that. I'm like, well, Chloe, if you want to sell $3,000 this week instead of $1,000, last week of the team meeting, you only booked at blank demos. So one of the things I think we can do today is just make sure that you're showing up a little more prepared so that you're coming out. If you want to book up, last week you had 8 demos leaving the team meeting. If you want to sell $3,000 a week, you probably need closer to 15 to 20 appointments, coming out of the team meeting. So talk to me about how many appointments you already have in front of you. And you're having a conversation with them. And here's what setting up a powerful team meeting looks like. Arrival times, how many names and numbers do they have on queue? Got to be at least 30, probably closer to 50 plus. Getting a demo and a phone call commitment from them before the meeting. You don't want to ask reps once they get into the meeting, hey, what's your demo goal? You should already have it before they show up. You should already know. They should already know going into the meeting what their schedule is, when they're going to do appointments, how many phone calls they need to make that night in order to hit that goal. It's an opportunity to influence culture if you have a theme, what you're doing for fun, and team night out confirmations, which, a lot of offices are doing those on Tuesday nights now. So you might not necessarily do, well, if you're talking to on Tuesday, it's like, all right, great, I'll see you later tonight at the team night out. Friday PDI objectives, okay, is to connect with reps. And the main difference, we're doing the same thing to set up our Sunday. The main difference with Friday is that we want to create a benchmark. So here's what I write down for benchmark PDI on Fridays. Write this down. You want to write down 1K, 3K, 5K, sometimes a 7, and then a 10K, right? 1K, 3K, 5K, 10K. And what I want to do on first weekend benchmark PDI, which is I'm calling through every single team on Friday before we go into our weekend. I really want to have a conversation and get a benchmark for every single person on my team. Are they going for 1K, 3K, 5K, or 7K plus this weekend? And I want to get them focused on some sort of goal or number. And I get it, guys. By the way, a lot of times, like you might think reps have goals, they don't have goals. And people that don't have goals perform less than people, even if they don't hit the goal. They will do better if they have some sort of goal that they're working towards versus if they're just doing demos this weekend. They're just going to see what happens. Hopefully it goes well versus, all right, cool. Yeah, I have this many demos. I'm going to gun for $3,000 this weekend. And you're putting benchmarks next to every single person's name that you can follow up in communication on Saturday and Sunday and drive them towards those benchmarks. You want to know, hey, who are we going to try to get to the newsletter this week? Who's not at $1,000 yet that we can get over that hump? Who can I be targeting to be like, who are my gunners for the first weekend? Who are like the 2 to 3 people on my team that I can get to go big this weekend? And every single week, I want to make sure I'm counting on a couple people that I can know are going to go big and getting everyone else on that team to that $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 benchmarks on first weekend, benchmark PDI. And obviously reconfirm and doing the same thing for Sunday that we do for Wednesday. And you can do this on Friday. Sometimes this could be done a little bit on Thursday. It's a little bit harder to do, in that nature. I'm going to skip through here and just to kind of tie a bow on this, guys, I just want to remind you that, this is kind of a basic level, just objectives. I'm not giving you the scripts. We have scripts for all this. There's loads of PDI videos that you can watch of live people doing these calls. But the most important thing is that you understand the objectives of what we are trying to accomplish. Do you understand how to connect and have a good phone call with someone and accomplish these 4 things of seed, in an 8 to 10 minute phone call? And the last thing I'll leave you guys with is just remember that the resistance that we get, from our representatives is ultimately a reflection of our influence that we have on them. The resistance that we get from our people, if your people don't show up to meetings when you talk to them, well, that says something about your leadership and influence. If all of your people get frustrated and quit the job their first weekend, it says something about your influence. If all of your people can go from struggling to having a lot of success, it says something about your influence. you know, and realize that the resistance that we get from our people is a reflection of our influence. You know, we get clues through the failures of what we need to work on. You know, when representatives quit, when people don't have success, when people get mad or don't show up to stuff, it's like little breadcrumbs and clues. Okay, cool. I could probably work on that. You know, next time I could probably do a better job making sure we're on the same page with this. Hey, you know, I clearly did a poor job of promoting advanced training 1 because we had terrible attendance. So that needs to make its way into PDI more next weekend. You know, you get breadcrumbs and clues through every single thing that you do. So we'll come up for air for a quick second. Take a quick second. Get your light bulbs down. Biggest takeaways here. And we will wrap up here for the evening. So take 30 seconds, post your biggest light bulbs and takeaways from PDI. And was someone able to get, let me make sure I have it here. Was someone able to get all those slides? I'll forward them into the TLA chat. If not, cool. Thank you, ladies, for getting them in. I'm not sure if anyone got one of the seed. I'll post a photo into there too. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and wrap up with our last message for the day, which is going to be a pre-recorded message by Mike and Bromwitz. He's going to give us some goods here to wrap up our meeting. So just a heads up, we're going to go about 10 minutes over. Is everyone cool if we go to 2:10 for the day? All right. All right, cool. We're going to dive in, but I think you guys are going to be good. And this is going to be a good wrap up here to our event. And I want to make sure. So Mike is actually in the Greenbrier right now in West Virginia on his anniversary. So send Mike some love and some good vibes his way. But he took some time to pre-record this message for us. And I'm excited to be able to deliver it and give it to you all. So I'm going to go ahead and cue this up here real quickly. And after this, guys, we won't have a what's important now. We will just dive right into assignments and wrap things up for the day. So without further ado.
Well, first off, I just want to say I apologize. I'm not able to speak live to you right now, and you're watching this recording. However, I am currently in West Virginia, and my wife and I are celebrating our 3-year anniversary right now, and we're really assuming we're having a great time and enjoying ourselves at the Greenbrier. And I just want to say I appreciate the division managers putting this together for you. So that way you can, all the management team have a great workshop and position you to have the best possible success possible. So thank you to the district manager team and to our division manager staff. I prepared a message. This message is going to be similar to what I just delivered to a company called Yellow Telescope. And Yellow Telescope is an Inc. 5000 company, and it's run by John Hoffenberg. And he is a former vector marketing division manager. He is a very successful dude, and he invited me to speak to his company on these topics I'm going to talk about today. And the title of my message is Personal Growth for Professional Success. And a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about today came through some breakthroughs that I had when I was going through my Tony Robbins training. I am a fire walker, so I walked across 1,300-degree burning hot coals, and some of the lessons that I learned from those experiences back in 2013, my first time walking across fire, and now I'm a 7-time fire walker, and I've walked across burning hot coals 7 times. I did burn the crap out of my feet 1 of those 7 times, and I had these blisters, the little hot spots, and those were great reminders for me that it is really fire, and mind over matter does exist, and my mind wasn't in the right place. But some of the things that we're going to talk about today are going to be some principles that I learned through that, such as one of the first is if I change, everything changes. I truly believe that any type of change we want to see in the world happens with us first. Someone might say, well, Mike, I want to change the world. Okay, great. You want to change the world. Well, in order to change the world, let's start with changing your country. Before you can change your country, let's change your state. Before you can change your state, change your city. Before you can change your city, change your community. Before you can change your community, change your family. Before you can change your family, you got to change yourself. When I change myself, then I could influence my family to change. And when my family begins to change, they could influence the community to change. Community can influence the city. City can influence the state. State can influence the country. Country can influence the world. but it's got to start with me. And if I change, everything changes. It's just a very profound way of thinking about life and about growth. Another concept is the way we do one thing is the way we do everything. See, I had a conversation with someone recently. I said, when you're at the gym, what's your self-talk like when you feel fatigued on rep number 8? So if you're on number 8 and you're going for number 10 or 12, what is your self-talk? It's just you and your headphones. What are you saying to yourself? Is the self-talk like, I could just do 8. I could settle for 8. Or is it, I'm going to find a way, push myself to get to that 10? Because how we do one thing is how we do everything. So if we're willing to push ourselves for those 2 extra reps in the gym, are we willing to push ourselves when that alarm goes off in the morning? And are we willing to push ourselves when we don't feel like eating healthy, when there's, Snickers bars in the cabinet and there's a healthy salad in the fridge? Which one do I reach for? I mean, all of our choices and all of our decisions, it's not just one small incremental decision that makes the big difference. It's all the small incremental decisions that show up in all different facets of life. When I was real young, if you're like me, we had dreams, we had ambitions, we had, different things that we were taught growing up. And, I remember Scott Dennis shared his kids all sharing their dreams in life. And his little son, Charlie, said, I want to be a fire truck, not the fireman. He wants to be a truck. Like he watched Transformers and thought he could morph into a truck, and we all have, when we're little kids, we have this imagination where we think that we could be anything. We could conquer the world, whatever it might be. And I know when I was a real little kid, my dad and I, we used to go skiing. My whole family went skiing most of my life. And we would go up to the Poconos up in Pennsylvania, or we would go to Vermont. And I remember one time when I was real little. I mean, I must have been 5 years old. If you ever seen A Christmas Story, but the kid, he couldn't even put his arms down. My mom dressed me in bundles and bundles of clothes and jackets. I couldn't even put my arms down. So every time I got on the skis, I would just fall over because you got to like be able to move on the skis. And I remember sitting down with my dad at some point. I must have been like 8 years old. And my dad was saying, oh, if you think this isn't even real skiing is in Switzerland. You could ski city to city, village to village. It's the most beautiful snow, powder like you never felt. And I said, well, Dad, one day I'm going to take you to Switzerland. We're going to go skiing together. And it was like one of those weird, fun, small little type of dreams as a little kid. And maybe you had a little dream like that when you were a little kid. Here's little Mike, and maybe you had a little dream when you were a little kid and you told your parents that you were going to be something, or you were going to do something, you were going to make big things happen. And I don't know about you, but my parents influenced me a lot during my life. My dad has grown to be one of my best friends, and I've learned so much from him over the years. And I wanted to do everything I can to make him proud and make my mom proud and live my best life. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that dream and the end of this, the end of that story at the end of this message. So one of the things that a lot of us do, though, is when we have dreams and we have goals, we follow what society says, and we write down our New Year's resolutions. Many of you had some New Year's resolutions when you started 2020. And now, once COVID hits and, change happens, we either, some of us change our goals, or, society tells us, that we can't do those, we can't hit those goals. You say, I want to lose weight. Maybe your goal was to start, to own your own business, or maybe your goal was to, start a nonprofit this year. Maybe your goal was to get 4.0 GPA. Maybe your goal was to, invest. Maybe your goal was to save up a ton of money, put a bunch of money into withholdings, or put some startup. Maybe your goal was to support different relationships that you had in your life. But, it's interesting. You have all these goals and society just says, nah, you can't have that. No, you can't do that. And we're surrounded by all this influence, whether it be social media or your skeptics or haters telling us why or why not we can't achieve the goals that we have in our lives. I like to call those the dragons of our mind. Those dragons of our mind. That's self-talk. Those limiting beliefs. Those are the dragons of our mind. Like imagine a dragon that is coming into a village and is going to wreak havoc on the village. And every So often this dragon comes in the village and all the villagers run and hide and they say scared and they're like, oh, here comes that freaking dragon again. And the dragon just wreaks havoc and takes whatever it wants. That's like those limiting beliefs of our mind. What's interesting is if we ever watch any of those type of heroic movies that include a dragon in a village, whether it's Shrek or, any of the old movies that have to do with, maybe it's not an actual dragon, maybe there's just some sort of enemy that's approaching and there needs to be a hero that arises. Well, whenever we watch those movies, we get so inspired by that hero that's willing to step up and say, I got this. I'm going to slay that dragon. And all the other villagers start cheering on that dragon slayer. And they're like, yay, you can do it. And then sometimes that dragon slayer, that villager, that brave soul, he doesn't make it. He doesn't make it. The villager's like, that's why I'm going to stay here, because that last villager to try to slay that dragon got eaten, and we haven't seen that guy since. So I'm just going to stay here in the village. I'm going to just stay safe in my own little comfort, and I'll just live and be scared for the rest of my life. That's just how life will be, and I'll just stay comfortable and stay alive and stay scared. And then another villager raises up the sword and says, I'm going to go conquer that dragon. And you know what's interesting? Is if that villager comes back to the village and slays the dragon, brings the dragon's head back to the village, that villager is now a hero. They maybe make a movie about that hero. Maybe they create maybe there's a menu at the local bar in the village, and there's a beer named after that hero. I don't know, but more than likely, that hero is a hero because it was willing to conquer the dragon and it slayed the dragon. And oftentimes that dragon is not this big, scary, audacious freak of a thing that's going to eat us. It's just these thoughts in our mind, that enter our mind that make us feel inferior, that make us feel so scared, that make us feel so fearful. And if we can slay those dragons and overcome those limiting beliefs, like, why shouldn't you run a branch? Oh, I shouldn't run a branch because what if I'm not good enough? What if I fail? What if people laugh at me? What if I lose money? What if, I realize I'm lazy? What if I'm not as good as I thought I was? What if? So we fill these beliefs in our head. It's like, yeah, actually, I don't want to do that. That's too scary. This Ole and push is coming up, or the chasing the cup or capture the cup push is coming up. It's like, maybe I can sell 10K around school. No. That's too tough. I'm in school. I'm already overwhelmed. I don't have enough capacity for that. You're going to stress yourself out. You're going to spread yourself too thin. You're going to get sick if you try that. And all these limiting beliefs come into our head. It's like, oh, no. I'd rather just stay safe and protected. And, I don't want to get eaten by that dragon. But the reality is there's no dragon. These thoughts and beliefs are so not real. They're just make-believe stories in our mind. And you can slay that dragon if you choose to. So I'm going to give you some tips on how to slay that dragon. But before I give you tips on how to win the battle of your mind, I want to make sure you understand where the battle of the mind comes from in the first place. So according to some of the studies that I've done, and if you read my book, Grab Tomorrow Your Best Year Ever, I talk about SAM, strategy, action, mindset. There's a lot of Tony Robbins stuff too. One of the things that is taught is that this is the cycle of how most people in society are raised. We're raised to achieve, where we have an achievement focus. So the achievement focus is, let me go ahead and get outcomes. Be a good boy, be a good girl, go get good grades. Be a good boy, be a good girl, go win that trophy. Be a good boy, be a good girl, go get a good job. Go get good grades, go be good. Get good outcomes. Achieve more. Be good in your relationships. Please mom and dad. Get good grades. Make a lot of money. Get outcomes. Lose weight. When you get those outcomes, then you're going to believe you are worthy of those outcomes. So when I get those good grades, mom tells me I'm really good. Oh my gosh, my smart son, my smart kid. So therefore you believe that you're smart. So when you believe you're smart, you feel intelligent. I feel confident. I feel wise. I feel capable. And when I feel this way, I'm going to continue to study. I'm going to continue to do the activities that produce really good grades. I have a great push. I sell a lot of Cutco. I have a big order. Well, my manager says, hey, good job last week, buddy. And it's like, nice. I believe I'm a good sales rep. I believe I'm worthy of management. I believe I'm really good at this job. I should stay here. I feel confident. I feel capable. I feel certain of my success. Therefore, I'm going to make phone calls. I'm going to book up appointments, and I'm going to continue to study my scripts and continue to get those outcomes. And what happens is we form an identity. We form an identity that aligns with the outcomes that we're getting, which is really fine, which is really good until those results aren't there. And if the results aren't there, or if we're not achieving at the level we aligned our identity with, so it's like, I identify as a smart kid. I identify as a push champion. I identify as my mom's, the proud child, whatever it might be. But what happens if the outcome isn't there? What if we're not achieving? So for example, I get a bad grade on the test and mom says, what happened to my smart boy or girl? I thought you were smart. What happened? Why'd you get such a bad grade? You have a bad push. What happened? I thought you knew how to sell Cutco. I thought you were good at the job. You get a bad result, and then someone throws a little poke, little jab at you, and then all of a sudden this belief system goes crazy. Those dragons come out of all the woodworks, and all the dragons come in and say, hey, maybe you're not good anymore. Maybe it was good while it lasted. Maybe you're actually not that smart. And this belief system that we take on, this story that we take on, creates these feelings of low energy, creates these feelings of angst or worry or depression, where I used to be good. I was a has-been. I'm washed up. So what type of actions do we take? The actions we're going to take, we're going to regress. We're going to isolate. The actions we might take, we might even push back. We might even argue and say, screw you, mom. Screw you, dad. Screw you. We might even argue and push back and create resentment. And then what happens? Well, if we do that and those are the actions we take, what type of results we're going to get? Well, we're probably going to get worse results. We might get worse results, no results. Therefore, we're fulfilling the belief system, say, I knew it. I knew I wasn't good enough. I knew it was good while it lasted. And how does that feel? And what type of actions do we take? And these are the types of feelings we get. We get triggered easily. We have low energy, low self-esteem, self-loathing. We're not going to take any risks. We're not going to try new things. We're not going to go after that big push. We're not going to try for that branch experience. We're not going to try to start that business. We're not going to try to, ask that person out on a date. We're not going to do any of those things. We're not going to have commitment. We're going to have disengagement. We're going to settle into D2, and we're just going to maybe surrender a little bit. Welcome to the motivational speech today. The point I'm making is it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. With a little flip of a switch, little tiny little adjustment, and many of you have heard this before, you can change the paradigm. And the paradigm is so simple where you switch it from outcomes focused to beliefs focused. And instead of being an achiever, focus on influencing your beliefs. So if we started with belief systems first, for example, if I put on my belief system of, I wake up in the morning and I go to bed at night and I believe I'm confident. I believe I'm worthy. I believe I'm capable. I believe I'm happy. I believe that life is going to be better with me in it. I believe that the future is very bright. We put on that belief system, and then how do we feel? I feel calm. I feel certain. I feel confident. I feel excited. I feel invigorated. What type of actions do I take? Well, I'll actually take actions. I'm going to feel congruent with my actions. I'm going to be centered with my actions. And regardless of whether or not that outcome is there, even if that outcome is not there, I don't get the result that night and that next morning, I'm still going to put on my belief system. I'm still going to put on my confidence. I'm still going to put on my worthiness. And because I am in control of my beliefs, therefore I'm influencing my feelings, therefore I'm choosing my actions. And regardless of those results, I put on those beliefs every single day. And you know what? With that paradigm, eventually I'll get my outcomes. Eventually I'll become an achiever. But I'm going to focus on my belief systems first. Those belief systems are so critical. Those stories of what we're telling ourselves is so critical. So we put those dragons at bay. We slay those dragons. And what happens when you do that? You create a feeling of confidence. And there's so many different ways to create this belief system. How do you do that? You overcome a challenge. You conquer a fear. Say the fear is I'm so scared to call this customer. I'm so scared to call that person. And you call that person anyway. You conquer that fear. You overcome that challenge. I'm just so nervous about having a big push around a busy schedule, and you go for it anyway. You go for it anyway. Be willing to fail. Intentional gratitude. I love thank you cards, little thank you cards. Give those intentional gratitude to people. Thank yous, random texts of awesome, random calls of awesome, just acknowledging people and saying, listen, I'm just thinking about you today. I appreciate you. Here's why I appreciate you. That's it. Something so small that could go so far. Reading and getting new perspectives. It's interesting. I signed up to work with Mike Chu in the Health and Wealth Academy, and I spent a couple $1,000 in January to start on the program. And I was like, all right, if I spend the money, I'm going to value the information. And the information I got, that there's so much information, but what I received the most of was, make sure you track your macros on MyFitnessPal and follow the workouts that we're going to give you. And I was like, I already knew how to do these workouts, and I already knew how to do MyFitnessPal. So I literally paid thousands of dollars for the information that I already knew. But I had to pay the thousands of dollars in order for me to use the information that I already knew. But what's interesting is I heard it differently. I heard it differently because the perspective that I was getting wasn't necessarily a new perspective. It was the same perspective, but it brought me new meaning at that point in my life. So sometimes that's what we need. We can't solve the problems that we've already created in our life the same way or the same version of ourselves that created the problems in the first place. We need to upgrade ourselves in order to solve the problems that we initially created for ourselves. Coaching, having powerful questions. If any of you want to, start a business or run a branch or have a big push or whatever's on top of mind for you right now, you want to get good grades, getting some sort of counsel from someone who's already done what you want to do and having them ask you some powerful questions can offer you some perspective, not necessarily giving you the answers, but giving you questions that could allow you to reveal some of those questions, to reveal some of your own answers. Stillness, meditation. People hear meditation and they think sitting in Tibet, as like a monk, like that is true. But really all meditation is being an observer of your thoughts. That's all it is. So imagine like you're sitting there watching a movie. Your thoughts are the movie and you're just watching there, eating some popcorn, observing your thoughts. And you just sit in stillness. And there's lots of guided meditation. You can use music and whatnot, but like you just sit there and watch your thoughts go by. So so sometimes I'll sit there in my meditation practice and I'll just sit with stillness and nothing's happening. And a thought comes in. It's like, nothing's happening right now. You're literally wasting your time. And I'm like, yeah, thank you. I'll see you later. Thought. Another thought comes in. It's like, oh, I'm hungry. Aren't you hungry? Yeah, but we're doing this right now. Did you eat last night? Did you eat last night? Thought goes by. Another thought comes in, right? And all these thoughts, I'm just like, the real me is the observer of those thoughts. So we have 50,000 thoughts a day. And oftentimes we can't tell which thoughts are our own. Most of our thoughts aren't even our thoughts. Most of those thoughts are programmed to be put into our mind from like media or relationships or other people. Like they're not even our thoughts. The human brain are it's like so prehistoric, the brain that we have, that it's like this old computer. Those thoughts aren't even ours. They're just programmed in our mind already. The amygdala is just such a prehistoric part of our brain, that the fight or flight mechanism of our mind, which is so important. We need that. But at the same time, we don't want that to run the show all the time. So we want to take the amygdala thoughts, like the first responder thoughts, and let those just kind of go by for a little bit. And we want to let the other part of our brain do some work for a little bit and just observe some of those 50,000 thoughts. That's all meditation is, just stillness. And then sometimes another thought comes in. It's like, you know what, that conversation could have went differently. And then I'll just sit on that one for just a moment. It's like, let's feel into that a little bit. What about that conversation? What could I have said differently? How did that person feel? I want to fix that. I'm going to hold on to that one. Keep that here. Let's see what other thoughts there are. And those thoughts just come in, and you can now consciously bring those thoughts forward, or really unconscious, bring those unconscious thoughts forward of what is weighing heavy on your heart. Sometimes we just feel tight or feel like angst, and we just don't know why. Sitting down with those thoughts can really bring those to the surface. Your circle of influence, or a total immersion. I just went to an immersion event in Austin, Texas, where it's like just doing a full immersion into another environment, or just being immersed into a mastermind or a circle of influence of people that are in similar paths as you and have similar goals as you, that you could just collaborate with and talk with and mastermind with. And of course, you could always give. You could always give back, volunteer, give service to other people. And by doing that, you'll activate the chemical in our brain called oxytocin. And when you give, you activate that oxytocin that makes you feel good. It makes us feel good. Oftentimes, instead of activating oxytocin, we want to activate dopamine. Dopamine are those chemicals in the brain that make us feel good, but it's more of like those bursts of feeling good versus like the sustainable feeling good. So a dopamine hit comes when you drink caffeine, or alcohol, or if you see a like or a comment on your social media. That's the dopamine hit. That's like the quick adrenaline feelings, versus the oxytocin is more of like that heart space, that feeling of like gratitude and real satisfaction after a really good workout, and you feel proud of yourself for working hard. And that's more of the oxytocin, more of the sustainable chemical is what we want to activate there. So what I want to give you is, I just want to give you, before I wrap up, is almost like a toolbox, a lunchbox toolbox. I don't know if I coined this phrase or not, but that's what we're going to give you. A lunchbox toolbox, where if you're in the middle of the day and you just want to get a dose and an increase and a jolt in perspective, or a jolt in belief systems, these are a couple of things that you could do. So number one, asking yourself these questions. Do I have a problem in my life right now? Do I have a problem right now? Yes. Okay. Can I do something about that? No? Then don't worry. Reach a place of acceptance as fast as possible. Yes. Then don't worry. Write a list of all the things that I can control, all the things that I can do, and let me go ahead and start making some small choices and small actions that can help me overcome whatever problem I'm working with right now. We have Andrew Biggs and I just launched our podcast, and we had this conversation earlier today, exactly on this exact topic, about the power of small decisions and the power of small choices, and how you can make tiny actions that are aligned with your goals, and you can work your way out of any problem, really, either reach a place of acceptance or making choices. Another great activity is this journal activity of how am I feeling? So we ask the question, how am I feeling right now? How do I feel? How do I feel? I feel confused. I feel frustrated. I feel disgusted. I feel frightened. I feel confident. I feel whatever I feel. And then the second question, why do I feel this way? I feel this way because I feel this way because I feel excited because I'm working really hard towards my goals. I feel frustrated because I keep getting in the cycle of not waking up early and not doing what I say I'm going to do and keeping agreements to myself. Well, how do I want to feel? I want to continue to feel excited about my goals. How do I want to feel? I want to feel certain that when I set a goal for myself, I'm going to achieve it. What actions can I take to feel this way? Well, I can share my goals, publicly, and making sure that people know what my goals are, so that I could have peer accountability, whatever it might be. And the miraculous thing is just by journaling through, and you're bringing the emotional part to the logical part, but just by simply writing it down, you will unveil so many awesome actions and habits and beliefs that you already had within you that you didn't need anyone else to tell you them. So that's a really great activity that you could do. Here's another lunchbox toolbox you could do. I love this one. Who wants change? Who wants to change, right? So this is a great one right here. If I were to do blank daily, my life would improve dramatically. And you may have heard of a lot of these before. But if I were to do blank daily, my life would improve dramatically. What is your blank? What could your blank be? Maybe it's waking up earlier. Maybe it's a morning routine. Maybe it's an evening routine. Maybe it's giving gratitude. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's giving. Maybe it's reading. Maybe it's studying more. Maybe it's making phone calls. Maybe it's whatever it might be, reading. I don't know. But maybe it's doing less of something. Maybe it's less on social media, less Netflix. Maybe it's less naps, whatever it might be. If I were to do blank daily, it would improve my life dramatically. Make that list. Share it with a buddy of yours and see what shows up for you. Here's one of my favorites. Who deserves my love right now? Who deserves my love right now? And making a list of all the people that are in your life that you really appreciate. Really appreciate them. And maybe they know you appreciate them, but they just need to hear it from you because you haven't given it to them recently. That's always a tearjerker. And if you have time right now, depending on where you're at, maybe you make that list and maybe you just make that random call of awesome and you call them and say, hey, Mom, real fast, I just want to let you know, I really love you. I appreciate you. You've always been there for me. You've, sometimes you're tough on me, but I know it's out of love and I appreciate that about our relationship. So I was just thinking about that. I love you. That's all. I got to go. I'll talk to you later. Bye. And you hang up the phone, your heart is like pounding. You're like, oh my gosh. And then they hang up the phone and they're like, wow, I really needed that right now. Wow, you needed that. They needed that. It's such a beautiful activity that you could do at any point in time that costs nothing, of just giving some love to someone who might need it. I got a couple more for you. Next one is an incantation. The incantation of all I need is within me now. 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 And you're calling out with your mind, your words, and your physiology. You're calling out the best version of you, and validating that I have the answers. And just by incanting that, saying that over and over again, this was one I used quite often, especially going into like cold plunges, to get my mind, my body, and my words all aligned. So that way I could jump in the cold or I can take a cold shower. That's one that served me really well. Another one is 5 things daily. Making a list of all of your goals that you have, and then making a list of all the activities that could align with that goal. Making a list, and then reading that list in the morning, picking 5 off for the day, checking them off as you go, and then repeat. And if you could just pick out 5 things every day that are aligned with your goals, 5 things every day that are aligned with your goals, by the end of the year, you'll have 1,825 wins for the year. You might say, well, Mike, that's pretty cool. That sounds good in theory. But I'll tell you right now, we have people and examples of making this real. I'm one of them. What's the power of 1 year? Well, in 2019, our summer, we did 252,000. This past summer, 2020, $819,000. The power of 1 year, going from 3 branch offices to right now, we have 10 letters of intent in for our district team right now. That's pretty exciting. And another one is on the way. So maybe when you're watching this, we might have 11. The power of 1 year, where Jessica Shannon was brand new and then earned over $35,000 in 1 year. The power of 1 year, Amanda's car breaks down to next year, she has a car paid in cash in full. Power of 1 year, Mason Linker, 2 years in a row, back-to-back nationally ranked, where the year before he was a kind of a lazy assistant manager that I didn't give him any responsibilities because he wasn't very good. Now Mason is going to number 4 branch manager, and he's qualified to go to Australia and New Zealand next year. The power of 1 year. So maybe just working through some questions for you, like if you were still here, how much have you sold? How much do you have saved? How much confidence do you have? How many people have you developed? How many options do you have? Just like working through the power of 1 year and breaking that down to see small, simple, measurable 5 things daily that could align with some of these goals. So that maybe that's an activity that you could do. I got a couple more for you, then I'll wrap up. The next one is give service. Give service. Always just try to find a way to hold doors for strangers or give compliments to people or use the waiter or waitress's name at the restaurant. Just give them a smile, give them something. Even if you're nervous, give service. And that's why that was kind of the foundation for PB&J for Tampa Bay. Just kind of give sandwiches to less fortunate people. It doesn't take much, it doesn't cost much, but it makes a world of a difference. And the last one here is feed your mind. Feed your mind, whether it be skill sets or feed your mind with podcasts, feed your mind with audio books, feed your mind. There's so many different thoughts that are coming in your head. You might as well influence them with experts that have gone through what you want to go, that have gone through what you're already going through, or are going through it right now, or have already gone through it. And that's why I love the Changing Lives podcast, because all of them sold Cutco. All of them sold Cutco. I mean, you listen to any of these episodes, from Olympic athletes to front row philanthropists who start their own charities, to people who started movements, best-selling authors, hedge fund managers, the guy who started Cutco, for crying out loud, the VP of Facebook. I mean, someone who works for the government. I mean, all these different individuals have great stories, and they have one thing in common: they all sold Cutco. So check out those episodes, feed your mind. All of those ways influence those belief systems and slay those dragons every single day, because that dragon is coming back on the regular. So now you have this lunchbox toolbox that can help you slay that dragon anytime it arises. Why is it worth it? Well, all of us, if you're like me, you had these childhood goals. You had these dreams when you were a kid. I shared with you, my dream was to take my dad to Switzerland. It was one of many dreams. And that dream became a reality not too long ago. And I'll tell you, it was really awesome when I found out the Vector trip was going to be to Italy. And I looked on the map immediately and I said, shit, Italy is real close to Switzerland. And my dad was studying Italian at the time. I said, can we do this? I saw if I could bring a +1, and I had to pay a little bit extra, and I was able to do that for my dad. I worked it out. I helped just make sure that his business was taken care of. He owns his own plumbing business. We set it up. We took a 18-day trip, went to Italy for a week, and spent another 10 days in Switzerland. And this was towards the end of our trip in Switzerland, celebrating what was an awesome experience. I mean, by the way, this was in the mountains in Switzerland, in a hot tub. It was really cool.
Final day in paradise. There he is, Incredible Hulk. Look at him go. Hanging out outside in the mountains in this hot tub. It is all worth it. It is all worth it, baby. Dreams come true. Work hard, play hard.
And it's a perfect example that, you know what? If you feed your mind, you do the right things, if you're willing to change, if you're willing to do the things necessary, you could literally create whatever you want out of your life. So do yourself a favor. If you haven't done so yet, sign up for the conference that's coming up, the Capture the Cup Fall Classic Conference. Tell all your friends that are in Cutco to sign up for this conference. Learn from some of the best minds in Vector and position yourself to have the best push possible. So that way, when you show up to this event, you show up with pride, you show up with certainty, you show up with excitement, regardless of the outcome of your push. You show up ready to conquer what's next. So my gift to all of you for having me here is, if you want copies of my books, videos, worksheets, all the stuff that I have for free, you can text GRAB to 66866. And you can get the books sent to you, the ebooks. You'll have some videos. You'll get on my email list. You'll get some updates and whatnot. And if you wanted to take your journaling to the next level, I did create my own journal called Grab Your Thoughts, a guided journal to capture moments. And it's just my favorite questions and thoughts from me to help you have your best year ever. So make today great. Continue on your personal growth journey and continue to use this business at Vector Marketing as a vehicle for your personal growth and professional success. Have a great rest of your push, and have a great rest of your event and your day.
Awesome. Well, we'll give some some snaps to Mike. You can feel them all over in Greenbrier. Hey guys, thank you for hanging out here and for 10-15 minutes over. I know we usually stay on time with these things, but appreciate you guys for being a little bit flexible and going over. I'm going to wrap up. Give me 2 minutes, just give some assignments, and we'll close things out for the day. So just a reminder of a couple quick things assignments wise. Number one, again, if you don't have these dates, if you don't have these dates down yet that I had up earlier, D-Day number 1, November 14th. Okay, and then you want to make sure that you have D-Day number 2 on December 5th. This is the day we'll do triple threats. This is the day that we will enroll the 10 to 20 others and actually get those posts up. So a couple quick things. Here's the assignments before our next prep. You'll notice there is way less to do assignment-wise between now and Fall Classic. And the reason that is because we want to give you guys less on your plate, because I know a lot of y'all are going to have midterms coming up, and give you an opportunity to really push and excel with your push. So by this Monday, this is push oriented. Now, all the PCs were due by Sunday. So if you haven't gotten one yet, you need to do that. And then on Monday, I'm going to have every single person in TLA post up a photo or 2 photos of the weeks of your calendar, like the interiors of the weeks of your calendar, to show that you have used your 15-minute increment calendars that you got at the beginning of the fall, and you have mapped out and actually have a plan for your push. I don't care what the plan is, as long as you actually have a plan. Second thing is, by Fall Classic, the next event, we have a Money Honey. So you'll start to do your expense categorization and your savings buckets. You can find this on the Money Honey website and just check your emails for that. And then just rock your push. The last thing is just the books that are going to be assigned. So for both, I guess I did this, I took the wrong photo here too. By Fall Classic, so regular general TLA, your book is going to be the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I probably have an audio. I can find that on YouTube, and I'll send you guys the PDF. And you'll have that one. It's not due until December 11th. So you've got some extra time with this one. You have 2 months to go through it. And it's a shorter book, by the way, than How to Win Friends and Influence People was. And then everybody else, I don't know why it's not up here, but NLG, you guys know we have Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And that's also due on December 11th. So outside of that, guys, I'll send over the assignments. Thanks for making today an awesome, engaged, productive day. Hopefully you took away some value. Go ahead and post up your light bulbs in the chat below. Feel free to reach out to me if you guys need anything. Have an awesome weekend, and let's get ready to rock the Capture the Cup push in true Florida Coast Heat fashion. Let's have an awesome weekend, guys. Have a great day. Talk to y'all soon.